10:4-68 Seek. Annual notice having been forwarded to the New Jersey Herald and the New Jersey Sunday Herald and posted on the bulletin board maintained in the municipal building for public announcements. Would you please rise and join us for saluting the flag and a moment of silence for Mike Rahel.
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
The United
America
States of America,
and to the
and
republic
to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
with
justice
liberty
for all. And we'll have a moment now of silence in honor of Mike Rahel, a longtime member of this board and a member before that of the zoning board. One moment, please. Okay, would the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Bongiovanni? Mr. Duncan? Mr. Gaffney?
Mark, you're muted. He's here, though.
He's here. Mrs. Crock?
She's here. She's muted. I'm trying to unmute her.
Mr. Ray? Mr. Riley?
Here.
Mr. Tappan?
Here.
Councilman Schindler?
Here.
Mayor Francis?
Here.
Mr. Gilbert?
Here, we have a quorum. Minutes. A motion is in order to approve the meeting minutes of May 4th, 2021, which have been distributed electronically. Are there any additions or corrections first? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney?
Yes.
Mrs. Crock?
We need to text her and tell her she's muted.
Mr. Riley?
Yes.
Mr. Tappan?
Abstain.
Councilman Schindler?
Yes.
Mayor Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes. We will move on to the work session. We have TBB Real Estate, Block 30707, Lot 6, 454 River Styx Road. The applicant would like to discuss how best to proceed with the use of the property. Is someone here representing TBB Real Estate?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Land Use Board. This is Attorney Daniel L. McCarthy III of Hopatcong. I believe the principal of TBB Real Estate, Mr. Todd Acuna, is also with us. I believe I saw him. So what this is in a nutshell, very brief history lesson. I know we supplied you with a lot of materials, but my client was busy. This is going back about a year or so. He was busy trying to clean up the site, remove tires, debris, and other junk from the back area. There was a question a neighbor apparently had about what kind of use was being made of the site. The zoning officer was consulted. My client was also looking to store some boats and trailers directly behind the location. So it's my understanding at some point that he appeared pro se for a work session, and there were further discussions with the zoning officer, and it was agreed that a site plan, updated site plan should be submitted. Then he retained me at that point. And earlier this year, we submitted a site plan application. We were trying to get the application deemed complete. There were several letters written by the engineer, Mr. Rushke, for the board. And then it was apparent that my client needed to involve an engineer and a site surveyor and so forth. And he got proposals, and what he considered a very simple, straightforward project cascaded, in his view, out of control, to the point that between the surveyor, the engineer, legal fees, board application fees, escrows for professionals, he's going to be looking at, anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 to store a couple of boats and to clean up his site. So he asked me to declare a halt to existing plans and operations, and also in further consultation with the zoning officer, we decided before we went off the deep end with this, that we best come back to the board for this work session, just to kind of present our problem here, and to seek the guidance of the board. I think ideally, this boils down to the direction statement or the direction request that we submitted to the board with two possible options. We are hoping that the site plan that was prepared based on the survey prepared by Lee Amerspec that my client marked up originally in December of 2020 and updated March 11th. We were hoping that that would be descriptive enough for the simple purpose that my client, an objective that my client is seeking. We're hoping that that will be good enough, and he wouldn't have to spend, potentially up to $15,000. And I'm sure he would indicate to you that to store 20 boats or up to 20 boats, it would take a long time to recoup that money. And I know he's prepared to talk about what it's been like over the past year with COVID and several vacancies at his business to recoup this money. So he's at a crossroads, and I think he would like further direction from this board before proceeding any further. So with that, if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Mr. Acuna to weigh in case there's anything I missed.
Sure. Mr. Acuna, do you have anything to add to what Mr. McCarthy has told us so far?
Pretty much, no. I mean, Mr. McCarthy eloquently stated the problem I'm at. I mean, during COVID, the construction, when they put the curbs in front of me, on parking, for me to spend an absorbent amount of money, I'm not trying to reconstruct anything, build a Taj Mahal. It's just cleaning my property. I just seen with COVID, the expense is exorbitant for what I'm trying to do. And I'm just looking for your guidance and your understanding and some input from you guys. Just, you have all the information. I mean, small town, no vacancies, COVID, just trying to get this where everybody's happy.
Okay,
And
let's
also just to add one other thing, if I might, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
we did put together a second proposal, which I would call that the let's pull in our horns approach, because I think we're going to have to make peace with the zoning officer, because I know he's concerned that there is no full-blown site plan. I looked at what's on file with the borough. Like many older established properties in this borough, there's not a lot on file, and this business has just kind of existed there, for a long time. It's one of these unique properties that on one side, it abuts River Styx Road. In the rear, it abuts West River Styx Road, which is a residential property. But if you look back there, there's several properties that are like this. You have the new townhomes or condos where the log cabin once stood. They have access to West River Styx, as does the service station and the craft store, formerly Frank's Hardware, and of course our site, the Grotto. So if my client is forced to spend all this money, or that's the option he's looking at, the other option we proposed is the pull in our horns approach, where we just kind of make peace. He withdraws the idea of storing boats, but he would like to keep the chain and the bollards up on the West River Styx Road side of things, because without that there, it's kind of open, or the invitation is there for neighbors and others to make use of it, to park, to dump, and then he'd be right back where he was to have to clean up all that mess again. So I do think at a minimum, he'd have to keep that the bollards and the chain there, just to kind of preserve the ownership, his ownership there.
All
So
right.
that's a summary of our concern and what we're up against. So we're eager to learn your insight.
All right, let's hear what Mr. Dunnigan has to say. Bill, what do you have to say about this?
Yes, it is a situation that, I felt the need for an update to the site plan with regard to the cleaning. There was a little, in the process of cleaning, there was a little bit of regrading. The driveway was basically broken through to the West River Styx Road, where, it had been all overgrown, although historically there's no evidence that there was ever a pass through in any of the previous approvals. Of course, there were the boats being stored, or the trailers were being stored there last summer. And so it was definitely reason enough to get to go for at least the amendment to site plan. The other concern that I have is that regularly there's been a couple of commercial vehicles that are parked in over by the garage, which are not, there's no site plan approval for these. There's a full-size dump truck, there's a Mason dump truck, and at times there's been an additional full-size dump truck to park there. So I would, if the board is so inclined, I believe that's, well, let's put it this way, for the last 6 months or 9 months, those vehicles have pretty much been there. So I think it's the intent that they would like to have them there. So if the board felt that it was appropriate and approvable, I'd like those to be included in the approvals.
Okay, and I believe, Mr. Rushkey, that you had some concerns about this as well.
Well, I guess my kind of share with Bill's thoughts regarding just having proper documentation and of what they're approved to do on the site. So that's clear. And it has been the practice of the board to try to clean up even some of these older applications just to kind of get it, a site plan on file so that there's something that is enforceable and something to benefit the applicant also, to give him the rights to do what he wants to do on the property and have it properly approved. So I think I certainly appreciate the the impacts to the local businesses with COVID. That's something that is something we have to consider. So I think it's a balance, and I think just if they can just get an accurate site plan together, and then have if they want to sketch something on an accurate site plan, perhaps we can even work with them to try to even defer that when things get submitted, as a condition of approval or something along those lines. Again, I'd love to, work wherever we can with the businesses because they have been impacted. But, on the other hand, we do have to have some minimum information that we have on file when we give approvals.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reschke. So,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman, I
President,
think-
Mr. Acuna, I believe we're at the point where we're saying that, yes, we know that the pizza place has been there for many, many years, and there may not have been a site plan on file. However, when you want to expand the type of business and when you want to do something else, such as store the trailers and store the boats and have construction vehicles there as well, that is an excellent time for us to say to you that you need some kind of a site plan on file with us.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, here's the thing. We have prepared and submitted a proposed site plan, which certainly it's light years ahead of what's on file now. The trouble is the ordinance requires a lot of formality, and that formality requires the services of the engineer and the surveyor, which puts us into the $15,000 range. And I think that's what the concern is. I guess the question is what we've submitted or what we propose to submit or what we're prepared to submit through a formal application, is that adequate enough to explain to the board, and does the board feel it knows well enough what's going to be going on there with what we've submitted, or do we have to go the extra mile and have the engineer knock this out of the park, so to speak? And that requires also the services of the surveyor beyond what the existing surveyor's already done. And the problem here, it's kind of compounded because this surveyor, Warner Engineering, he's retired and he's not taking on any new work. So my client was forced to get another surveyor. And although the drawings were picked up by the new proposed surveyor, he still has to do a ton of work. So I guess what my client is prepared to do, if he's, and again, I've explained to my client the desirability of having a site plan, as was eloquently explained by Mr. Rushkey. It does help him. It helps the value to his property. So, and I've explained that to him and he understands it. It's just now's not the time, doesn't have the budget. So realistically, if the plan that we propose to submit is adequate, we'll submit it without any further engineering or survey work. If it's not, then I think what he'd like to do is pull in his horns, forget the boats, and make peace with the zoning officer and just keep the ballers in the chain in the back.
Okay, what is the feeling of the other members of the board?
Can I make a statement, Alan?
Go ahead, Bob.
You know, it's always the formality thing, but I think if you had an engineer look at this, they would tell you about what backing up trailers behind that mason garage would actually be. The width of lot 20, 50 feet. They show 7 spaces in that, whether it's accurate or not, it can't be, because you could never fit 7 trailers side by side, much less back them into place. So I think the engineer would come up with a hard time saying you're going to be backing up 20 trailers there. So you might find out with an actual engineer that you could get 8 in there. I don't know that you're going to get 20, because I back a trailer up myself and drive it all the time. And I don't see you could fit anything except maybe 1 behind the masonry garage, much less 5. And that's where an engineer separates that thought pattern. Just my 2 cents.
I believe, Todd, you have had some boats in there in the past. How many have you had historically?
I'm the number, I put 20. The gentleman is correct. You probably cannot fit 20. I'm willing to compromise with that. I have no problem not putting behind there, behind the garage. I just want, like they said, the expense. We can do this between us, between the town, the council, and everything else, but just not to me the exorbitant amount of money. Just, that's my whole thing. I mean, the stuff was there before I bought the place. It's been there for years. People were parking boats there. People were parking trucks there for many years, for many, many years. And there's people on this board have seen boats being stored there years ago and trucks parked next to the garage. So there's my,
Yeah, listen, you can probably safely put 12 to 14 boats there. You're never going to get 20. I remember boats being parked there, and the reason that people don't know as much, because you can't see them. When you put boats there, you can't see them from the road. They're blocked in on one side by the garage, and on the back side by other buildings, and on the front side by the grotto. Listen, we asked them for this. This to me is a good concept site plan. It's a hell of a lot better than what we have. And I, for one, don't have any problem with a business trying to survive these days. I think that the parking the boats back there would be no harm, no foul, quite frankly. But you're never going to get 20 back there. More realistically, probably go to the corner of the garage. You probably put 12 to 14 boats there. But what we have in front of us is light years better than what we've ever had before. So it's a move in the right direction, in my opinion. You formalize this drawing, and you're home free. I know that property between West River Sticks and the front parking lot was an absolute disaster. That's cleaned up nicely. So this is not a residential lot. This is a commercial lot, and on a commercial lot, I expect commercial usage. So we can't treat this like a residence in no way, shape, or manner. And so to park a few boats in the back and to put a chain up so that people can't back in there and dump their garbage, I personally don't have a big problem with that.
But Bill Dunnigan pointed out that there's been a driveway poked through to West River Sticks Road, and there are construction vehicles parked by the masonry garage. How do you propose to take care of those things, Mr. Acuna?
well, I mean, the road that Mr. Dunning is talking about was always there. It was just overgrown. You couldn't see it. We just cleaned it up. It's like peeling an onion. After you get down there, it was all that we just cleaned it up to make it look nice. I mean, people are dumping stuff over the years there. So, I mean, I didn't create anything that wasn't there. I just made it back to what it was. And the dump truck he's talking about, that's where I just throw like not garbage, like leaves, branches, then we take it out and then we dump it. It's mine. It's not like I'm making any money off of it. It's just something I throw debris in and then we take it away. We dump it and then we clean. That's how I keep the property clean. I mean.
So you own that dump truck? It's owned by you?
My stepfather. My family.
So you're not parking it there for a business?
Nope, not business, not making, we're not using it for anything. Just like using it, like having a dumpster there. That's all we use it for. And it has 4 wheels and we take it away and we just keep throwing stuff in there to keep the property clean. It's not business. We're not running business out of there. We're not using it for a business, nothing.
I ask, is that the red Mason dump, or is that the, I think it's a white, it's a single axle, but it's a larger.
Yeah, it's a white single axle there.
So which one do you use for that purpose?
I mean, I don't think, I know the white triaxles, the white axle truck is there. That's where we've been throwing stuff in. I don't think the dump truck is there. I mean, the dump truck, I don't remember the dump truck's there right now as we speak. I mean, I know we use that to bring in, just to clean the property up. It's all my stuff. It's nothing's there that's not mine, except for the one truck. Everything else is mine for, building supplies for here and stuff like that.
Okay, other comments from the board?
What ordinances for parking trailers, John? We went through that a couple times. What's the space?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I apologize.
I was asking John Rushkey, what is the space required by ordinance for parking trailers? Do we have anything that delineates that?
No, I don't think we have anything specific regarding trailers and boat storage. We have cars, but not boats. So it's kind of subjective.
Well, this is commercial property. This isn't a home where we had some restrictions on storing things like that. This is commercial property, right?
Yeah, it's
Right.
commercial property. It's just it's like other applications where like the marina, across the street they have a site plan that shows exactly where they're permitted to park boats and where they're not in the time frame. So that's the benefits of having at least a decent site plan. And it's something to regulate so that if the board approves 12, you're not going to see 20. It's going to be 12.
We would also need to know if any maintenance is going to be performed on the boats or trailers.
No maintenance on the boats.
Well, what is the pleasure of the board?
Good idea to utilize the property and to help the business exist. I do think a site plan is needed, so we get part of what we need to get to clean up the old documents we have in town.
Is the site plan that he's proposing sufficient, Bob?
In my opinion, no. It really should be a little upgrade to that. But I understand the financial side of it too. He's just trying to exist.
So Bob, what would be a little upgrade? I mean, if he leaves here, what would that upgrade look like?
I'm not, I'm not a pricing out engineer, but you gotta break current standards to show what you want to do and the limits of what you're gonna do.
I would defer to John Rushkey on this as far as boats. Most marinas that we've approved, to my knowledge, we approve X amount of boats. They stack them in there pretty much any way they want. So, we can show them, we can show spots on the site plan. They may be next to each other. They may not be. It depends on the boat. There might be a big boat, might be a little boat. I mean, our marinas have that flexibility. That's how a marina works. So
I think, Mayor, that's what I was going with. If the site plan shows 20 boats, okay, I've been a boat owner for all my life. There's no one perfect boat. If he shows 20 and he can't fit but 15, okay. What's the rub? So he puts 20 jet skis in there. Okay.
Well,
that's right.
I think that.
See what I'm getting at? We're getting wrapped up with the number that he can put back there. If he gets to a maximum number that he can't physically put anything back there, then he's done.
I think that we also have to go back to the letter that Mr. Rushkey wrote. I have a letter from Mott McDonald dated February 11th, 2021. And it refers to things such as site, is anything going to be done on the site? Where is there gravel? I see here broken pave repaired. What does that mean? Existing garage, there are a few things that needs to be taken care of. I have no big problem with the site plan as it is myself. I think that along with that site plan, if we had some testimony and perhaps some other documentation to take care of the things that Mr. Rushke has found, I think it would be sufficient.
Just to be
agree.
just to be clear, where there's a line that goes from the masonry garage over to the property line, and inside that it says trailer and boat storage.
Right.
So I have no problem of him putting as many boats and trailers as he wants, as long as he's within that line, in that block.
Right.
But I don't
True.
necessarily see any reason to even have line spaces where they're supposed to be.
That's never gonna happen.
That whole section can be open as far as I'm concerned, because he can. And if we want to set a limit on boats, we can set a limit if you want at 20, but I don't, to show where he's going to park them, he's going to have that space back there. He can double park them if he wants to.
Well, I think we've given Mr. Acuna and Mr. McCarthy a little bit of direction here. Mr. McCarthy, do you agree?
I believe so. So it, just to kind of put a cherry on this, as I understand it, right now we're really lacking in terms of a site plan. We're coming forward with what I would call the bronze standard, or maybe the silver standard. And if the amended proposed site plan of March 11th is okay, we can submit that. Or if Todd can mark it up some and clarify any concerns that you have, I think he can certainly do that. But as long as we don't have to cross that threshold where we have to go and get you the gold standard, which would require the services of the surveyor and the engineer and cause him to spend north of $10,000 to do that, I think we're okay. It's just, we were of the opinion, reading the last letter from Mr. Rushke, that, we had to comply formally with the ordinance and have a formal site plan drawn up by a surveyor and an engineer to completely comply and meet that gold standard. But as long as we can give you something that's better than what's on file and not go broke doing it, I think that's a wonderful compromise.
I agree with Phil. Just take that box, that oblong box where you drew in, where you parked the boat. Don't put them lines in there. Just make that area boat storage area. You agree?
Yeah, it's not paved anyway, so you can't line it.
Right. So why line it on the site plan? Just make that area boat storage, and you can only store boats in that boundary.
Okay.
And that's
As many as you can get in there. I mean, that's by size and by dimensions of whatever he's going to store.
And then the other thing is, we did show employee parking just diagonally behind the masonry garage, because, as you know, when the River Styx Road was realigned and they put in the lights and all the curbing, a lot of space was lost out front, and now the customers are parking on our lot on site. And the employees, what we're proposing to do is to just park the employees in that area that's denoted as such. That's the only other thing we didn't touch on here, but I just want to be clear. That's why the
I see no
employee
problem
parking
with
is
that.
shown.
I would think you want to put some kind of limit on this, so you're not taking a forklift and, driving them in a dolly and stacking them up. So you got a neighborhood back too, right? You got a dwelling right behind it.
Yeah.
You got to be fair to them too. So I would never want to see more than 15 boats there. Me personally, it's just my opinion, but I see using it is to his advantage.
Them boats are nowhere near a house. That's pretty much closing. You can't see where them boats are.
But we don't have an application in front of us.
Yeah.
So
I
think we've given him the direction that he wanted.
I think so too.
Yes, I concur. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Alan,
Yes.
Alan, I have a question regarding the existing gravel driveway, and I don't want this to come and bite him in the butt later. Bill, is that a real sticking point? I mean, we're just talking, a graveled area going back. I I don't want to put it, come before us and have this to be a problem. Is this look like a problem right now? Because you brought it up, Bill.
Which Bill? Me? Bill Donegan?
Yeah.
Okay. It's just that it was all leaves originally. It was all brush, and now it's, it's cleaned up. I believe, if I recollect, because I'm drawing from memory at this point, because it's been a while since I did the initial review. I believe technically it is a variance required if a commercial property is emptying onto a residential street, meaning West River Sticks. That's just the technicality of a variance. It's not it's not a sticking issue.
It's not.
It was already there.
Well,
There.
Mr.
Well,
Kuna-
then
He
Mr.
got that
Kuna
blocked
said that
off.
it was always there, and he just cleaned it up. I'd like to see
Okay.
proof of that.
He's got that, and anyhow, he's got a chain across that, so you can't go on the West River Sticks Road. That's the whole purpose of the chain. So it's not an access to River Sticks Road. By the way, we did the same thing with portion of Patrick Pub, if you recall that, the back parking lot of the gravel. And so I don't recall anything in our ordinance that says you have to pave anything.
Okay, Rich, does that answer your question?
Yeah, listen, I'm okay with it. I'm just worried about the applicant coming and wanting input. And I want to discuss it now so there's no surprises for him. I hate surprises.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Rich more, Alan. That's that,
I think it's
brought it
okay.
up. Yeah, it's fine. And Rich is
I think
on
it's
point.
okay. And even with the wire across or the chain, I mean, they're not having access. So
Okay.
I don't have a
All
problem with it.
Mr. Kuna, Mr. McCarthy, are you satisfied with what we've done here?
I think it's wonderful. I appreciate your time and the attention to detail. And Todd, if there's anything else that we need.
I appreciate your time. I think you guys, thank you very much for all your input and listening. I appreciate your help in this, trying to rectify the situation.
Okay, we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Okay.
Have a good night. Thank you, guys.
Okay, we will move on to continued applications now. Klaus Bennett, block 31605, lot 5, 76 Ithanel Road. Mr. Bennett was with us before, and he's back with some revised plans, I believe. Mr. Bennett, are you here?
Yes, I am.
And is there anyone else who's going to be with you representing your interest?
Yeah, my
Yes.
architect. Yeah.
Okay, we'll have you and the architect sworn in, please, by our attorney.
Please raise your right hand. Where the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, but the truth,
That's why.
I do. And your architect,
The architect is?
Matthew Smetana, and I reside at
Mr.
64 Sunset Lake Road.
Mr. Spatana, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Mr. Spatana, you've testified before this board on a number of occasions in the past, isn't that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And you are still licensed?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right, then, Mr. Bennett or Mr. Smetana, who wants to go first?
I can go
Klaus,
first.
but
Yeah,
Klaus can go first.
I mean, I want to just again thank the board for taking another time to look at the plans. We certainly have taken the suggestions and recommendations from our last meeting very much to heart, and I think we incorporated all or tried to address all the requests that were being made. So I'll let Matt take it from here and show the updated plans to see if they'll meet your requested changes.
Okay, Mr. Smetana.
Yeah, so if I can share my screen, I will.
Okay, there
So
it is.
the changes are primarily done to what was the larger two-car garage. Basically, we have changed it to be a one-car garage with a carport attached to the side of it. We've lowered the roof height and the garage door height, so it's a single garage door that's 8 foot tall. And I'll zoom in a little bit here. And the roof has come down since it's a single slope. The wall height at the back is 8 feet and it slopes gradually up to approximately, let's zoom in here. So it's, the ceiling height is 11'9" at the front, basically. So we've reduced the height down. Here it is in plan. Basically, we're trying to ultimately get the ability to have 3 cars parked at the top, 1 under the carport, 1 in the garage, and then an additional 1 off to the side. As far as zoning goes, we are, let's go to, get down to the chart. So we reduced the impervious coverage. We eliminated, there had been a driveway to the left side of the garage accessing the other road. We're converting that to just be either gravel or reinforced turf. We are therefore reduce the impervious coverage to 36.5% now, with the allowable being 35%, so we're 1.5% over. The height of the garage is, average height is now down to 18 feet. And what else? The footprint is similar to what it had been, but we now have open side and front on the carport, so it will appear more transparent as far as from the street goes.
Now, if I remember correctly, last time we zeroed in on the lower boat storage area, and we indicated that there's no way to get into that. Is that correct?
There's, well, I guess it depends what you mean by that. I mean, you can certainly access it from the property, but Klaus may certainly want to address this one. But.
Yeah, so we, it's, you know, again, currently it is a shared access, and the only access really to the property. But what we are suggesting, we're just taking all that out and putting gravel there and having, so it's basically allowing it for emergency access, but not for regular storage or access to the property. So it would be just like if there needed to be some work done to the septic field or anything like that, so that there's an access still. But otherwise, you know, the parking on top would be sufficient.
So you wouldn't be using the lower boat storage?
No, I wouldn't use it. So we compromised on that as well. So to eliminate that, I mean, not for vehicles, this might bike storage or something like that, but not to access, I mean, bicycles or something like that, but not to access on a, you know, on a basis. So it would really strictly be for emergency need to access the property.
So you won't be parking a car or a boat in the lower level?
No, no, it would be just for up on top parking.
That's that 9, to get back there, that's that 9-foot section on the left side of the garage is what you're talking about, access to get back to the back part of the property. Is that right?
The 9-foot section
there's the garage, and then there's a section that's about 9 feet or 8 feet. It gets, is that clear going back to the back part of the property? Whoa.
Well, there's a retaining wall separating. So right at the back edge where my cursor is, you can see it.
Okay,
that retaining wall, it drops off the 7 to 8 feet.
Oh,
So
wow.
you can't access directly from Ithanel Road down to that, no.
so that's the space where you're looking for the third parking space.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yep,
And that's all existing, right? So this is nothing new. This is just already there.
right, yeah. I mean, we're tying the retaining wall to attach to the structure. That's really the only thing.
Members of the board?
The other thing is there a variance that's requested to have those steps as close to the next property line? The steps that go down the side of the garage,
Right side.
the right side. It's right on the property.
The neighbor steps are right on that same,
But that
right on the
doesn't, that
property line.
doesn't
too.
matter. I mean, if
Yeah, oh, no, I don't know. Okay, I'm sorry.
the neighbors have nothing to do with
Yeah.
your property. If we're asking if a variance has been requested to put your steps that close to the property line.
None was stated in the list of variances needed, so if there is one required, we were not aware of it. But
Okay.
Those steps would be new? Nothing is there now?
There's current, well,
Correct.
there is it looks like a platform. It looks like historically there have been steps, but there isn't one currently. I mean, there's a concrete platform and some stuff that makes me, and poles and stuff. So it looks like at some point that was probably the original walkway, because it's all the neighbors along that street have the same access type stuff.
That walk be entirely on your property?
Just,
could you
I'm
repeat
sorry.
that?
Would that walk be entirely on your property? That's the
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it would be entirely on my property.
And
There's
with
no
all
more.
that, all those walls, those stairs would have to be new. Everything would have to be new.
Right, the retaining wall on the left side would be kept, but everything from that retaining wall over would be new. Correct.
Yeah, I would think the steps may be construed as a retaining wall also, the way that it's constructed. It's kind of a gray area.
Well, I think it looks a lot better than it did.
Anything happen with the house? Anything change on the living structure?
No, that is exactly as it was.
So that was presented the last time.
Correct, yes.
Well, did we have any comments to that the last time? I know we focused it on the garage, but did we have anything with the house? We were just trying to square it off, right?
Right,
Just the lower boat storage area with the lack of access. We had comments about that.
We also had close front Canal Road, that it was right on the road. That was an issue. We're still pretty much there, but I guess.
Can't do anything about that.
No, but it's been lowered, so that does make a difference there. You agree, John? Rushke?
Yeah. It's
Or just the other thing is, and it's written here in the minutes for the meeting, but we also talked about this new garage being larger than half the house.
Right.
How's the dimensions compare now? Is it still larger than half the house, or is it just the garage and not the carport? How's that match?
I have to double check that. It's a little larger than half the house, unless you don't count the carport as part of that, but.
But it has a roof on it, so it have to be counted, I believe.
Yeah, it has a roof.
But there's a variance, he's seeking a variance for that. That's one of the variance requests.
Correct, that is.
No accessory structure larger than half the house, the principal building. So he's got that covered in his request.
If I remember last time, we talked about a carport, not a garage.
Well, now he's got both.
Well, the reason for the carport was the visibility when you're going down the road, you can see through it. You can't
Right.
through. And that garage is still pretty busy for that lot.
Why is it so tall? Why is it 18 feet?
That's good
Well,
for the,
it's average grade, so at the back, you basically have the whole foundation exposed. So when you average the two together, at the front, it's only 12, but it's average grade 18 feet.
Okay.
that was like a 15-foot door on the other one the last time.
Hmm.
The very
Right.
high. And that was the biggest, I think, thing. The carport was, I also think we mentioned a half carport and possible garage, but we don't know until we see it when we get the plans.
Right, so that's what we were proposing, was half carport, half garage. Still trying to have some protection for the additional vehicle, but some transparency at least.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to continue with that, with your comments about the garage?
Yeah, it's still, it's still a wall and right next to the road. And I believe we talked about the coming down that road, the visibility. It's still a building that's there. And I vividly remember us talking about making it a carport. You can make the carport as big as you like because you can see through it. It's a lot different than a garage.
He did state he wanted to enclose one,
Mhm.
if my memory serves me, to that's all.
Yeah, I remember that also, that he did want to enclose one. And then we suggested not have two and just have a carport on the one side and make it small, lower the roof. Because that roof was so looming
Yes.
large.
I think
It's certainly better than the first one proposed.
I think it made a couple compromises that I'm more in favor of by far than the other one.
Oh, yeah.
I guess you can't back that garage back a couple of feet to get the corners off the road.
Well, we're up against the septic field, so that's the problem.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I see that.
Not much area.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's right on the corner of the septic field now.
Right.
We questioned that. If it would have impact.
Already cantilevered as it is off the back of it.
Right, yeah, just to create some space. And just for reference, the previous garage was 16'6" tall. So. At the front. We're 13'4" to the highest point.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
No.
Judy? No?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm looking at it. Looks fine to me. I like it much better than the first one that he brought us
Mhm.
because he had said he had a big vehicle that he had to have the height. Obviously, he's going to put that vehicle in the carport,
Right.
but it looks good. He did a lot of work. He took what we said under consideration and he adapted his plan.
Quick question, Alan. And maybe I'm not seeing it on the drawing real quick because I can't scroll down on the drawing. How close to the roadway is the front of the garage?
It's right on the,
On the property
it's on
line.
the property line, but the roadway, I can show you the survey. So this shows you the property line,
Yes.
and this dash line is the road. It kind of recesses in for the inlet, but
Okay.
it's probably at least another 5 feet on average from the property line.
Okay.
Okay,
There are the neighbor's stairs anyway, right there to the side, but set in more.
Right, this is here, yeah.
I mean, that road is tight. I get it, but I just worry about my guys. When we get another 35-inch snow, you're gonna have a heck of a mess in front of that garage, and it ain't our problem.
That's a problem.
Get a big shovel is all I got to say.
Right.
Well, it is on a hill.
Just like we do on Lakeside, get a snow blower.
I'm with you, Rich. I'm just, that's awful close and, not much room to move.
Yep.
okay. Let me open it to the public. Let's see what the public has to say. Anybody from the public want to, anybody at all? If you do,
Could you do me a
please
favor and come off your
reaction.
screen share so I can see the whole screen?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, if anybody from the public would like to comment, please go to the bottom of your screen, reactions, and raise your hand.
I have Mara modes. Hold on. Mara, you're on.
Mara, you're muted. Unmute.
You're muted, Mara. Oh,
Mara, unmute. You're muted. Oh, did we lose her?
no, we didn't lose her.
Up in the
but
corner.
Mara, you're unmuted. Can you unmute yourself? Well, while she's trying to do that, let me just mention that we did get a report from the Lake Hopatcong Commission. There's a letter that has the date of May 17th on it. I just got this letter just shortly before our meeting. And if anybody else has it, you can take it into consideration if you want.
Mara
Mara
mode's
Mode.
unmuted now.
There we go.
I'm
Mara
unmuted.
Mode.
There you go,
Mara
Mara.
I couldn't unmute until he sent me the thing that said unmute.
Okay, you're
there we
unmuted
go,
now.
Mara. You're on.
Bill, you want
Okay, I
to
just,
swear her in?
Testifying, let's swear you in, please. Please raise your right
Okay.
hand. Swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth,
yes,
and your full name.
it's Mara, M-A-R-A, last name is Modes, M-O-D-E-S.
Okay.
I just want to make a comment that all of the, well, just about all of the garages that are down that area are all practically right on the road. There's even a cabin that's almost right on the road. So I don't think that that would be out of character for that area. That's my only comment.
Thank you. Anybody else? If anybody else from the public would like to comment, please go to the bottom of your screen and under reactions, raise your hand. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to make a motion that
make-
we accept it. Accept the
I would
proposal.
second it. I would second it.
Yep.
Do you think we have to do anything to make sure that the foundation is in the right location to certify that it's the right location, given how close it is to the road? Just so it's not built too far out, given that we're right on it.
Well, he's right on the property line. He's about 5 feet off the road, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You don't want
What do
it
you
on,
mean is an as-built?
yeah, you just don't want to build a problem when you can slow it down, investigate it, make sure it's not before you start pitching concrete in it.
Wouldn't that be the construction inspection?
Isn't that up to Donegan?
Yeah,
No,
and
no.
Not done, the other
It'd be
bill.
up to- But you have
O'Connor.
to have it surveyed.
Oh, O'Connor. I'm sorry. Yeah, O'Connor. It would be up to.
No, an as-built wouldn't necessarily be that way. It's much more, it'll run much more evenly if the board makes that a condition of approval that there be an as-built.
You want an as-built foundation location then?
That is correct. Given the nature.
Okay,
Unless,
let's
unless
find
we're
out-
gonna get the
let's find out
certification
from,
of the height too.
Mr. Haggerty, exactly what we're voting on.
Okay, this is going to be a motion to approve the application as submitted based upon the revised site plan, variance plan, actually, dated May 4th, 2021, presented this evening. We've talked about a condition of an as-built foundation location to verify that the building will be in compliance with the depiction on the site plan, on the variance plan, and site plan, variance plan.
What about parking in the lower area?
What's that?
Parking cars and vehicles in the lower area, just to make it.
Yes, okay, yeah, he's testified that he will not use the lower area for car or boat parking.
Right.
Make that a condition.
Well, that's the motion.
Okay, go ahead, Danielle.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
yes,
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Toppin,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler,
Yes.
Mayor Francis,
No.
Mr. Gilbert.
No. Let me just say, I agree with Mayor Francis that it should not be another closed wall up there. Okay,
What?
the garage, a wall. But either way, it has passed and
Done.
it's done. So just, Mr. Bennett, you have our blessing.
Thank
Good
you
luck,
very much, Board. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. New applications, Lynn and Bill Jarosinski, block 10810, lot 22, 3 Point Pleasant Road. Applicant would like to add a covered porch to the rear of the house, reconstruct the garage as a 2-story with the upper level as storage. Variances being requested, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, Mr. Jarosinski, Mr. and Mrs. Jarosinski, are you here?
Hi, yes, good evening.
Okay, and do you have anyone else who is going to be testifying on your behalf?
Yes, we do. We have Bernd and Ken here as well.
Okay, Bernd is an attorney,
yeah,
I believe, so that he
Unmute.
doesn't have to be sworn in, but the other people do have to be sworn in. Bill?
Mr. Heffley, are you with us?
Yes, I am with you. And as soon as we swear them in, I think we should swear in both of the Jarosinskis, both Lynn Jarosinski as well as her son, and Ken Fox.
Okay, everybody there? Please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And we have Lynn Jarosinski, correct?
Yes,
Mhm.
And you're a property owner,
yes.
and you have your son there. What is your son's name?
My name is Ted.
Theodore?
Just Ted.
Ed, okay. All right, and you have your architect.
Kenneth Fox, architect and planner for the applicant.
Okay. And Mr. Fox, you've testified, I think maybe many times before this board, and you are currently licensed as a planner and architect. Is that right?
That's correct.
Jeez, what a lot.
Okay. Mr. Heffel, it's up to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members, Bernd Heffley on behalf of the applicant. The Jarosinskis are the owners of 3 Point Pleasant Road, block 10810, lot 22. It's a lakefront home on Point Pleasant, down towards the end of the lake, the southern lake. The application before the board is basically for a reconfiguration of the lakeside decks of the home to make them more usable and also, more importantly, safer for the owners as they're becoming a little bit more elderly. They've owned this home for quite a while, and the current configuration of the decks and the stairs is also a safety concern for them. So they want to make some modifications with the decks on the back. And this property also has a small attached garage property. Has a little bit of an unusual configuration, but it's a very small structure that's also not very usable for them at this point in time. So they want to make that structure more usable by adding a second story to the garage, basically putting a second story right on top of the footprint that is there. So the application does trigger several minor bulk variances, and there are some prior non-conforming conditions that Mr. Fox will talk about. So our witnesses tonight are the two Jarasinskis. I think Ted is going to take the lead for his mother here, and also Ken Fox. So with that said, Ted, I guess you're still on the call. So how long has the family lived at the current residence?
My mother has owned it since 1970, and it's always been her desire to try and retire here, on the lake, since it's a nice place to live.
You mean to tell me she's still working? That's pretty good.
Well, the house isn't done, but the retirement is in progress.
Okay. All right. So you folks have owned the house for essentially 50 years then?
Yeah.
Okay. And can you just give me just a brief description for the board of the property, the house and the garage, what we have there currently?
So what we have currently is kind of an odd property that, it wasn't quite laid out when, the modern rules that we have now are in place. So it's a little bit awkward the way it's set up, but we're trying to make the best of what we have, which is, the house is, you can see on the plans, it's basically just a square building that leads down to the lake in the back. The property is very steep there. So right now there is a concrete patio that has a lot of different levels with stairs, and they go all different directions. And it's not an ideal place for someone who's more elderly to try and walk around. So obviously we want the deck instead on the front, which would sort of be a replacement of the existing patio, but it would be level with the front door. It'd be easy to access, and it would be covered. And then for the garage is in the back, it's kind of isolated by itself, and it's a very small building that's penned in by the size of the land it's on. So you can kind of use it for storage, or you can drive a car into it. And obviously, we want to be able to bring a car in the winter so it's not icy and all that. But once you put a car in there, you could barely hang a shovel on the wall, much less use any other storage or space there. So the goal is to have a second story on there that has easy walk-in access. That would really be the only place. There's no basement. There's no real attic access. There's no place to store anything. The house is very small. So that would kind of be have a nice safe stairway where you could walk up there, maybe have a little workshop area, store things, that whole type of deal.
Okay. So, I mean, essentially, we're trying to make the property a little bit more usable for your folks here, and make the deck a complete walkout deck so that there are no stairs that they have to traverse, and give them some storage in the attic. Okay, that's just about all I have for the Jarasinskis. If the board members have any questions, that would be fine.
Just a quick question to Bill. It's a separate lot that the garage is on. So would this be construed as D variance for expansion of a non-conforming use, and because it doesn't have a principal structure?
It would. Is there a reason why you would not combine these two properties?
Well, so let me speak to that for a second, John and Bill. So I took a look, because this question was brought up to me by Ken, and I took a look at title work on this property and the deeds to the property. And from my review of it, this is all one lot. And I don't see where this issue of the two lots is coming up, because I reviewed the description very carefully, and it runs around the entire property. And I think the tax map is probably just incorrect here. So I wanted to bring that up, and I'm happy to give you the title work I have, but I see this as one lot. So maybe how are we getting to this situation of two lots?
And Bernd, when it's my time to testify, I do have the survey up as my first exhibit. If you want to,
yeah.
If we want to share a screen now, I can bring that up.
I just think this should be resolved to the satisfaction of both attorneys, because just because the elected officials can't hear this application if you do proceed as a D variance. So we just want to.
I think this is going to be conditional upon these lots being combined as a single lot. If the survey shows it as such, it shouldn't be that complicated for the tax record to be amended to that.
Right. So Bill, I will give you the title work that I have and the survey work, and I think you'll see that, that it is the tax map that needs to be corrected here. And I'm happy to provide that to you.
Professor Cannon should do that.
Yeah.
So,
Question, are they paying taxes on two different properties? What types of taxes are they paying?
Yes,
Yeah.
we're paying the taxes to separately.
You're paying
Okay.
two separate tax bills.
Right.
And Bill, should we proceed as if this is a D variance?
we should proceed, Mr. Heffley, I would recommend that we proceed based upon these lots being combined as a single property.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And we can make that a condition
Would be
and
the
talk about having to do it. It's really unusual that there are actually two tax bills, because it is very clear in the title work and in the description of this piece of property that it's all one piece. There's no question about it. So I don't know how that came into being, but we will most certainly correct it with the tax office.
Okay.
So we can, back to Bill's question, can we proceed under the condition that these lots are combined or will be combined? And the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. And we will proceed that way, and if anything happens precluding that, then everything we've done tonight will be null and void.
That's right, which they'd have to come back for a use variance.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah,
Agreed.
because something is afoul with the mod 4 update should be there. If he's paying two tax bills, something has not been updated in mod 4.
Right.
Right, Bill?
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
And okay, so I guess we're just going to proceed. But I took this title all the way back to when they purchased it, and it was never two lots. So we'll figure it out. But I don't see an issue that we'll have to come back to do this over again. And if I did, I wouldn't proceed. So I think we're going to be okay with that.
That's fine. They wouldn't be getting two bills though if it wasn't two lots somewhere.
Yep, something's awry, but we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Okay, so back to any additional, that was John Rushke's question, I guess, of the applicant. I don't know if the board members have any additional questions on the applicant's testimony.
Oh, I do. In terms of the garage, you want to rebuild that so that the upstairs has a workroom and some other things. Would there be plumbing? Would there be electricity?
Only electricity.
No plumbing.
No plumbing.
Okay, so it's not habitable.
No.
Nobody will ever live there.
No. No
Okay.
plumbing is part of the plan. Only just to have electricity so you could have lights and, plug a tool in or something, that kind of thing.
Right.
You have drawings of the garage, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The drawing, the architecture, but is Ken Fox going to speak first?
I'll be speaking regarding the layout and the size of the garage, yes.
Okay. So I'll reserve my comments to after Ken goes.
Okay, so then maybe we'll just proceed with Ken's at this point.
Sounds good.
Okay, so Ken, obviously you've been out to the site and you prepared these plans that have been submitted with regard to the decks as well as the garage and the dimensioning and whatnot. Let's just walk through for the board. And I'm not sure if you want to start at the garage end or the lake end. Maybe we'll start at the lake end.
Yeah, Bert, has my screen been shared? Is it visible?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So
Yes.
why don't we?
So I'll start by just recognizing the lot and the configuration and where our plans are, and then I'll bring up the plans and talk about that. So the configuration, the survey is shown on your screen. The lot that we just talked about is shown as one lot. We communicated with the surveyor after we had the comments originally about the potential of it being two lots. The surveyor confirmed that that is the information he had, as Mr. Heffley has testified or stated that he has reviewed the title. So you can see it is a unique piece of property. I believe that, at the end of, this is essentially the end of Point Pleasant Road that comes up in front of the garage. And then there is a right-of-way through our property to the properties that are on the lake at the point. I believe that historically that was a recreation place or a country club or one of the older clubs that is no longer in use and is now there are now residences at that location. So you come up Point Pleasant, you make the left or bare left into the right of way, past the one-story garage, which is on the same property, and they go up to the other area. We come on to right in front of the house. There is a gravel area, which is where we park the cars, and then an entrance into the house. I'll show the 2.5. Well, it's 2.5 stories, but it's actually, that's a survey has it because it looks big, but it's actually 2-story, and it's a relatively small house. And I will show floor plans to the rear, and it exists presently directly on the property lines on both the west and the east property lines. In the back of the property is a small deck, and there are steps down, and then there's a number of levels. There are 8 inches to a foot down between each level to have a couple different patio areas, gravel areas that lead down to then the grass area that goes down to the lake. That property extends out into the lake. We know how many of those surveys have show that from the past. The other unique thing about the layout and what we're doing with the porch is on the east side of the property, where this says concrete sidewalk, it's actually an easement on the adjacent property. There's a concrete sidewalk. That is the only way to get from the front of the house to the back of the house, on the outside, other than going through the interior of the house. It is sloped, narrow, and then has steps down here. And as the Jarosinskis testified, yes, they're getting older, but Mr. Jarosinski does presently use a walker, and anticipated that, and does use a wheelchair in the house. And one of the main reasons for us to come before you to ask for a porch out here is so that in fact he can enjoy and get to that directly from the house interior. I'm going to turn off.
Would that still be office property?
I'll show that. I'll show that now. So the proposed deck is to the rear of the property towards the lake. I'm showing now the floor plans. These were submitted to the board. This is sheet Z2 as submitted to the board. Floor plans, and I'm pointing now in the center plan, which is the main level plan. You have entry, kitchen, a small dining, living area, and then we have our door. We're changing our plans to change the doors here, but then we're adding a 15-foot deep covered deck, which is set in from the corners of the house, so that not only the porch, but the overhangs, the gutters, anything of that house, of that porch, would be on the property. We made sure that we didn't overlap the property even up to the sky. So that allows this. One of the other things we are changing a little bit on the exterior is the steps that are in this area here. Now you go on the back right portion of the house, you go down steps, down towards the backyard, and back up steps to the porch. So we're going to adjust these concrete steps here, and I'll show you a photograph. Adjust these concrete steps here so that we can get flat to the deck and then have a single set of stairs down to the rear. I would like to enter.
But the concrete sidewalk is to remain on the neighbor's property.
That's correct. And I'll show you. I
Yeah,
have yes.
Ken, there's an easement, just so the board knows, there's an easement in place for those stairs. I'm sorry, for that walkway on the property over there.
Yes, there is an easement.
Do we have a copy of it?
Yeah, the easement is on the survey that was submitted.
Okay.
Yep. And the recording information is on there also.
So it is shown here. I'll just blow it up on back to the survey. And my computer takes a second to zoom in. But I'm showing here the easement, which is a concrete sidewalk that goes down here. And again, down steps, back up steps. So our goal is to change this. Bernd, I'd like to be able to enter an exhibit of photographs.
Yeah, so these photographs, I submitted these to the board last week, Friday. So we're within that 48-hour requirement. And so they've been up at the board for a few days. And so you can.
When were they taken?
These were taken, I'd say probably last fall. I've been working on this for a little while, prior to the winter, because they were during COVID at some point.
Ken, how many total pictures are there, just so we can mark it?
I have 2 display boards.
Right.
The one that's shown here is labeled Jarosinski Residence, and it's photographs number 7 through 12. I do have another photo board, which is also labeled Jarosinski Residence, and is as photographs numbers 1 through 6.
So
why don't we make one exhibit 1 and 7 to 12 exhibit 2?
Excellent. Okay, so I'm showing now from my back, with my back is to the lake on photograph number 7, to show the rear of the house and to show the existing covered deck, the little deck here, and you see the steps that come down for the left and the steps that come down from there. And we can see that again in photograph number 8. Photograph 11 shows a concrete walk down along here, and it goes towards the rear. I do want to mention that the neighbor, and I'll show in 12, the neighbor had some time ago constructed a large garage adjacent here, and at that time he also reconfigured and raised his driveway, creating the Belgian block, the curbing here, and the narrow aspect of the stone. Previous to this, the stone was much wider. Doesn't have any effect, but I just want to any effect really. But I just want to let you know the history of this and how it is used. The easement is where the concrete walk is, and that's just the way that is accessed to the rear. Photograph 8 shows the steps that go up to that, and it is and then when you get up to the platform here, another step when you're going towards the street. So all of that's going to be so that we can walk directly onto the proposed covered deck, and the proposed covered deck will be from the side of these windows and extend out 15 feet. I know Mr. Rush's previous report, he mentioned about the retaining walls. I wanted to show, I don't have a photo of all of them except from the top, but we can see the walls that are shown on the survey are these small walls that separate some paved areas. I should see that on photograph number 8. Also on photograph number 9, we see how there's a paved area, that small low wall, paved area, and a slow wall, and then it goes down to another small wall that goes down there. So these are not over 4-foot retaining walls. These are low walls, and that's how we just want to describe that. If I get to right now, I'm bringing up Z1 as submitted, and this is showing the survey with our proposed construction. You can see that the proposed covered porch is here. We access it from the sidewalk, we access it from inside, goes out 15 feet, which is just about the height of the length to where that first 1 foot, 8 inch or 8 inch to a foot high wall is here. The other garden areas are shown on the survey as remaining. We're just putting a longer set of stairs here to be able to access that. And then it goes, grass, as you saw in the photographs, goes out towards the lake. On the, Vern, do I have any, is there anything we want to add regarding the porch?
No, I think that's it. We're good with that.
So on the property, as we showed, so on the site plan, Point Pleasant Road ends here, and we have the right of way that comes through, and it essentially goes around the garage. I believe there was an application that the board did review some time ago, actually not that long, but the Jaroszynskis were trying to go along with their neighbor and reconstruct this garage with some attic space and connect it to a neighbor's garage, but that was frowned upon because of the zero lot line coverage or something. So that has not been continued. The neighbor does not have a garage right here. I'll show some photographs in a second. So what we're looking to do is on the exact footprint of what exists today, is to be able to put a working area and storage area. We say working area, one is the access. We want to be able to put a real stair up there instead of a flimsy pull down stair. And so to do that, we want to come up a set of stairs. We come up a set of stairs from the exterior, because there's no room on the inside, from the exterior up to the second level. And I'll bring up the plans. And in that, again, small space is where we'd like to be able to hang the shovels and hang the rakes and do the things you normally do in a garage, and have potentially a workbench and some of the things that you may work on, a car part or a lawnmower part or something like that. Presently, the house, other than a small little storage area, the house really does not have a usable basement, and really doesn't have significant attic. So we're looking to do that on this part of the garage.
Ken, can I just so that the board understands, the size here and the scope and how small this thing really is. What is the dimension of that garage? Length and width.
Yeah, Bernard, I'll show the plans in just a moment.
Okay.
And I'll do that. Then we'll be able to show that. So I'm bringing up the photo board, which is labeled exhibit number 1, and this shows the location of the garage. That right of way goes off to the left. On the right is this house. It's their driveway. So the driveway to the right and the right of way to the left. We can see to the left is when you it goes up here to this home, and then the homes on the other part of their I'm going to call it a cul-de-sac, but it's not a municipal cul-de-sac. It's actually part of their property up there. So you can see that this garage in number 4, that this is a very small garage. I wanted to show in photograph number 3, when we're looking east along the road, you can see the garage is tucked in here. They got the trees behind it and the adjacent home. Somebody's puppy. I'm going to bring up now sheet Z4 that was as submitted. Excuse me. So the current garage is 10 foot 6. It's 10 foot 6 wide. It's really a minimum size, and it's 20 foot 6 long. So the actual parking area inside is just under 10 by 20. And we know from all the other presentations that parking spaces. This is a small parking space, but it does work.
There.
What's that?
I said, don't go there.
exactly. But this parking space this garage is small, but it fits a car. But as Ted Jarosinski mentioned, you put a car in here, there's barely enough room you can't hang things on the wall adjacent to it. It's just not that size of garage.
When was the last time a car parked in there?
I'd have to ask the Jarosinskis.
When was the car parked in there?
They've been using it as storage.
If anything, a very long time ago, it's basically just been used as storage because of the obvious storage limitations on the property elsewhere.
Okay. Are there any sheds on the property?
No. And I don't think there's really anywhere you could even put a shed in it would be the only place would be like in the backyard, right blocking your view of the lake. So that doesn't make much sense.
No, you are putting a big deck up.
Well,
Something under the deck.
Blocking the view, I think helping the view.
Yeah.
But so and that's why what we've done is, and I've shown the curb locations along here, and we've shown that we would be installing some bollards along there for some protection. Along, just because it was actually my idea to make a safer boundary borderline. We're proposing inside that curved area, inside the property line, a set of stairs that goes up from the concrete pad in the rear and goes up the stairs up to the upper storage area with the door on the top. So again, we've stolen some space from that small area to even to be able to get stairs to fit, but that was the goal, is to be able to get that. And we've shown the storage area here that you can see. We do know that it's a tall, narrow structure. But we wanted to do it in the form of a resident of the same, similar to it is now, and similar to residential structures where we put windows in it and put a nice roof on it, and really tried to make it attractive. And you can see in the rear that we have the stairs that go up to the door from the rear. You can see in the cross section how the stairs intersect and cut out the front part of the garage. So the storage area, well, parts of it do go to the front, is actually less than less than a 10 by 20, inclusive of the walls. And you've heard the reasons, that we have for this. One of the things I do want to point out on this street, that Jarosinski's brought up to my attention, and we do want to make the board aware that their house here, although it has a big presence, I think because of that columns you saw on the floor plan, it's a fairly small house, but it directly adjacent is a tall garage that was built very close to their property line, very close to the driveway, but tall here. And I'm taking this photograph essentially from the location of our proposed garage. Photograph 3 once again shows that garage, and in the location that it is, it will not be blocking any views. It's in this kind of in the center of this area. There's no views that it's blocking. It's not blocking anybody's light or air to their home. It's really not providing any negative impacts. Yes, it looks tall, but there's no additional impacts that are occurring on the property.
Just for clarification, as you're looking at picture 3, you're coming down the road, there's a telephone pole there. That's where it turns left, and that's where the easement is to go back to the other properties. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had to look at the survey to say exactly there, but yes, that's correct. You can see both in photograph 3 and in photograph 2. Photograph 2 is a little bit closer, and pull it up a little bit. Yeah, so the road, the traveled way, the road ends here and then goes across across our property to this area that's built like a cul-de-sac on the other properties with homes up on the upper level.
If you had a snow blower, you would still have to keep it downstairs in the garage, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know where they're going to where they're going to store a snow blower.
Yeah, you back of the garage, right underneath where the stairs are.
With a smaller car, they could fit a snowblower in the front of it, yes. So the variances we have are, as we talked about, it's the uniqueness of this, is the uniqueness of this property. As we look at the survey and we even try to understand it, as Mr. Gilbert had the question, that pole, you can see the pole on the survey up here is actually off of our property. But yes, that curb that comes up to the neighbor's garage goes right past the pole. And so this is all pavement where the property line is. And that is the traveled way up to the homes that are up here. So we are in so we have before you setback variances, we have coverage variance. Realize that part of our coverage is the right of way for the other properties. So that is a big part of the square footage of our impervious coverage is on the street side, and that drains, as you can see, it was hill up here, that drains away from the property. The location we're proposing, the outdoor deck, is on what has been and already is different paver and gravel areas, and is really not going to change our water pattern on the property at all, with its leaders and its runoff. So we have we have very unique layout of the existing property. The variances for frame garage is on this left hand side because it's adjacent to the neighbor's driveway. So this is a parking area also, which is adjacent to that garage. And in my view, it does not provide any negative impact. When you ask about negative impact to the zoning ordinance, we have an pre-existing condition here. It's talked about that many years ago. The ordinance doesn't take into consideration, and that's why we're here before you, some of these unique properties around the lake, and I know that you see them all the time. We have unique property, existing structure as far as the garage, and what we're doing is we're making it higher. And Bernd, I don't know if I have any other.
So let me just jump in, Ken, because I'm listening to this, and I don't think I've seen a more classic sort of C1 hardship variance than variances than that come with this piece of property. And I think, from a planning point of view, I would just ask you, I mean, these do fall under the C1 hardship sort of criteria, where your testimony is that the benefits of these variances outweigh any detriments, because there really are no detriments there, and it's very difficult to make this property work in any way in terms of storage and deck safety. So, I mean, is it fair to say these are classic C1 hardship variances where we meet the criteria of benefits versus detriments?
Yes, I think that when the land use law was almost made for this, when you have unique property lines, unique shapes, it talks about topography. We don't have topographical problems here other than adding stairs to the deck. But the right of way that goes up to the to the neighboring properties is something we have to deal with. There is no variance to that right of way. So we would not, our request is not to get too close to the traveled way or the road, other than a front yard variance on the garage, because our front yard here is at Point Pleasant Road, at the end of Point Pleasant Road. The front yard is out here in front of the garage, and adjacent to neighbors. So our variance for the garage is the side yard here, on the if you face it to the right side of the garage, and then also in the front of the garage. That's where our variances are for the garage, not with the.
I mean, really, the only real additional variance, I mean, that's existing like that. The only real additional variance here really is the height variance, right? Because we're going a little bit higher. We're allowed 18 feet and we're going somewhere above 20, I think it is, right?
That's correct. We didn't want to make a flat roof. We didn't want to make a flat roof structure, but it is the desire of the Jarasinskis, and as they testified, and as I testified, that they're looking to be able to stand up in there, and being able to stand up in there is important, and to be able to get up there and have a door open to it is something that, again, their age, you want to use a standard stair to get into an attic area or a second level area, rather than a pull down stair.
So you could make that second story comply with the 18-foot ordinance requirement with a flat roof. But is it fair to say that from a planning point of view, this roof that you're designing here is going to work better, and more importantly, also look better than a conforming 18-foot height would have?
Yes, and you can see that the main part of the garage is 17 foot high, which is below that. It's the roof. We showed a peaked roof on that, and that's the part that sticks above the required. We'd be open to modifying that, but we didn't want to present a cube here and have it as a flat roof garage.
You don't have to have it as a flat roof garage. You could have it. You could move the garage down and put two dormers on either side of the roof. You could drop that whole roof all the way down and put two dormers on there, and you could stand up inside, and you'd be underneath the 18 feet. You'd be at the 18 feet.
Well, let's
Anyways,
let's finish testifying, and then we can each make comment, because I have several.
Go ahead.
Bernd, are we?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're probably at that point for questions, because I think we've gone through, what our design is, what our variances are, and why we believe they're justified. So absolutely ready for some board comment.
Okay.
I got one way out of left field. I would move the whole garage into that area where you have the right of way, and then create a new right of way that makes it easier to get back into the property. Get that garage the hell out of the middle of nowhere and move it right next to your property, and then redo the road going back to those houses.
That's theoretically able to be done, but you'd of course need to negotiate.
It's all one property. If it's all one property, it's not two different separate lots.
But to move the right of way, you need the consent of all the owners who have access rights over that right of way. And
we're building a 10 by 20 or smaller storage area, and that road, what is their roadway or driveway in the right of way, that's an expensive road. There's curbs on that. That's an expensive. That's expensive road to realign.
So
just keep the garage at 18 feet and it's done.
Yeah, drop the lid down and build two dormers on either side of it.
Has everybody looked at that? Have everybody looked at that area and seen that garage there? I mean, you see the pictures, but have you physically gone down there? But let's talk about the covered roof in the back. Everybody has a lot that owns a house, right? You have a lot, and you have limitations on that lot. This particular lot has a lot of limitations on it, So at some point, somebody thought it was a good idea to take a house that's 20 feet wide and put it on a 20-foot wide lot. So now what we're going to do is we're going to propose to duplicate that same error from way back when and allow the covered deck to be the same width, right on the property line. Isn't that against what we try to prevent on our applications? There's no, it's literally right on that 20-foot line. We're continuing the errors of the yesteryear. That's
We don't try to prevent anything. We give variances to with negative and positive criteria.
Well, you're building right up to the property line again. There's, you have to max out. Everything's maxed out on this property. Then you go to the shed front. First of all, attic stairs are not, you just expressed them, the pull downs, that they're, what did you call them, Ken? They're a detriment.
They're difficult, I think. I don't remember my exact word.
When you look at this, it reminds me of a railroad signal house somewhere in the middle of the rail yard. And we're going to pop this right in front of the house that's sitting in front of it, right? And we're going to make this giant dog house for him to look at the rest of his life, which is not too fair for him. So, I mean, I could see needing storage, but I also see if you've done all the work in the back, figure a way to put an 8x10 shed in and cover the tools. I don't know. You said you didn't have a car in there, and this is all storage anyway. So why are we doubling it and making it an eyesore? Because that doesn't add to architecture. That adds to detriment to the park. I disagree with you totally, Ken. It is horrible. This is a horrible looking structure that you're making that neighborhood, which has all nice houses, look at forever.
I believe that the owners, I believe
a well in the septic on this property.
We're duplicating errors and we're complicating the front. Just drive down there. It's offensive. That garage shouldn't be there to begin with. Rebuilding it, yes, keep it the same height, maybe make it a little higher. But I have a garage that's small and I fit everything around my stuff. You put things on the wall. I just think the lot is overused for the lot limits it has. It's not like you have all this space and it's just bad topography. This is limitedly 20-foot wide lot with a giant easement going through it. And now we're trying to pack 2 more pounds of meat on it.
And if you're no longer going to use that gravel area to park, why not put a shed there?
Exactly.
I mean, it would require variance for structure in the front yard, but it doesn't block your view of the lake.
I think that aesthetically, I mean, I'm going to let Ken speak to that, but putting a shed in that front yard, I don't think would aesthetically help the neighborhood at all. But Ken, you could talk to that.
Yeah, but I do know, and I asked the Jarasinskis to confirm they're on here, that we could lower the height of the garage and still have the standing area up top. If I were to change this to a 6-foot plate height, which Ted is fairly tall, we could sit at a 6-foot plate height and make it open inside and put a 4-on-12 roof on that. I would be able to get that underneath the 18-foot. I would be able to get under the 18-foot requirement for and remove the height variance from this.
So then that would remove the variance on that altogether, right?
Then
yeah,
anything on that would be existing non-conforming. And
there you go.
And you can see that it had a roof on it before, so essentially we have a similar roof there. So essentially, we would be adding 6 feet to the height of the garage, not what I've done as 10 or 11 feet. We could modify that, and I'd say that I mentioned it to Jarasinski's, unless they say otherwise. I would amend our application to have a 6-foot plate height with a pitch that keeps it below a total of 18 feet.
Then you don't need a variance.
Then you don't need a variance.
Then we don't need a variance. It's conforming with the ordinance, and the rest of those conditions for the garage are prior non-existing. So Ken, if you can actually get that done, and yes. I haven't heard from the Jarasinskis. It's sort of odd here on the Zoom meeting, but I'm just going to ask them to confirm that they would be willing to do that.
Yeah, we would be willing to do that. I mean, if we can get it down and, kind of take care of some of these concerns by lowering the roof height so we don't need the variance. As long as, like I said, as long as we can walk around in there and be able to use the space the way we want, then, I think that's really the key here. So if Ken can work that in and we can sacrifice a little roof height, but still be able to walk around, then, I think that would be acceptable.
Okay, so you're willing to make that modification for the board, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, Ken, so as long as you can design that so that they can still stand up in there, and that'll work for everybody. It'll work for the town. It'll work for us. So that's a great solution.
Except for the neighborhood. But okay.
But it eliminates a variance, right?
Yeah, there's no variance. There's done.
You are absolutely correct. But then what happens to the rest of the neighborhood? That's not going to be a nice looking feature in the neighborhood. Just drive down there.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Well, let's go to
Parking
Mr.
lot, that's what we deal with.
Report.
Let's get to the deck.
Mr. Rushke asked, where is the septic and the well on the plan?
I believe that this is Seward and Jarosinski. Can you please answer that?
Yes. There's a sewer with the grinder pump. It's in the backyard, and the well is also in the gravel area in the backyard, sort of near the property line with lot 68. Yeah, near the utility pole on the corner there, right near, yeah.
Okay.
It's a little bit in and to the right from there, I believe.
I see. Okay, but thank you. But the important thing is it's Seward.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
There were some
Anything
questions about the deck. Do you have any detailed drawings on the deck?
Yes. I just have to find it. Sheet Z3 as submitted. We show the front elevation, the right elevation, and well, we show all four elevations of the showing the deck. We show on the rear elevation, you can see that there's that little short area that we're changing the grade there to be able to come flat into this, so that we can come out the door, have a deck at this level, and be able to enter it from outside straight away.
Mr. Fox, how much is the deck recessed from the corners of the home? It doesn't span the entire backside of the home. How much is it recessed?
Look, I didn't have a dimension on the plan, but it's 16 inches.
16 inches on each corner?
Yes.
Looks like the roof line goes to the whole side of the house though, right?
That was we can make the overhangs a little less. My draftsman showed a 12-inch overhang with the gutter, or 11-inch overhang with the gutter. We can surely make that 4 or 6 inch overhang. We just tried to match a little bit more. We would have no problem in bringing the overhang so that there's, at least on paper, that we were definitely off the property line on that.
Look at the nice storage area under that deck.
Yeah.
Isn't that a storage area?
The problem is anything you want to bring there, remember the height under the deck isn't really that high, and the land slopes up under the deck. So it looks in the plans bigger than it really is.
Yeah, we're showing that as 5'3". We're showing that.
That's what hearings about, how to figure out how to do it.
Showing that as 5'3" here, and to get from the rear property to the front property is a significant number of stairs. It's just,
you got to go upstairs to get to the storage area. You got to go downstairs to get to the shed.
Well, but remember also the stairs above the garage are one straight stairway, whereas here, even to get to this walkway around the side of the house involves going around a couple of corners and around down the stairs and around here. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's the same thing, obviously.
But it's the place to put the storage that doesn't offend the rest of the block.
I'm not sure that a ordinance conforming structure and done in a style of the residences, and is fairly common throughout a significant part of Hopatcong, that we have that would now a conforming height garage. Is it the prettiest? That's an eye of the beholder, but we are now conforming with that.
Let's not play stupid on that. That is not an attractive structure.
I think it's also important to consider here that if that argument's going to be made, if you look at the garage that was built right next to our house, that was allowed to be built very recently, that building is roughly similar in size and height, and it's right next to, it's right next to us. It's kind of walled us in the front. So that was allowed to be built, that way. So, I think you could see that there's a similarity there.
Well, I think.
Can we move on? We've already dealt with the garage. If he gets it down to the 18 foot and it's he has no variance, let's move on.
Okay, we would, on the, this is the garage that Mr. Jarosinski was mentioning.
Correct.
5 of the Exhibit 1. And so we, as I testified, we could, we came in coming in 16 inches from the existing building. We could make the overhangs so that it's not shown as shown on the drawing. We would bring that in so that there's I'll say a minimum of 6 to 8 inches of overhang and
well, you talked about before overhang earlier.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you discussed a 4-inch overhang previously. Is that something you can do?
I'm trying to count. I'm trying to count the gutter. The gutter's gonna be 5-inch gutter, be a standard gutter. So 8 inches would give us a 3-inch overhang and a 5-inch gutter.
Does it make any sense? Does it make any sense to tow the outsides of the new patio roof in instead of being 16 inches? Bring it in 2 feet. Tow it, because you've got plenty of room between where that's going to be and your windows. You could tow that in a little bit more. We're here to get a project approved, and we've presented something that we really like, but I'm sure the Jarosinskis would agree that minor, some modifications like we did on the garage are acceptable. If we had to put that in so that it was 2 feet in from each side, we don't have a problem physically from making that accommodation. This is something, again, Mr. Jarosinski has difficulty walking, and we're lakefront property, and we have I don't know how big it is, 5 foot by 5 foot or 6 foot by 6 foot, whatever it is, deck that's acting even down a step right now. So we're looking to get approval from the board for this. So we would have no problem in, I'm sure they obviously have to answer, but I would think we have no problem for going in 2 feet.
Listen, we don't want to redesign your whole building. Just don't go out past the existing envelope of the building.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're going with this. So, watch your overhang, watch your gutter. They can't go past the existing envelope of what's standing there now.
We can most certainly agree to that condition.
Yes.
I think that makes more sense.
I agree.
Could I ask a question, Mr. Fox? The call it the deck or the bridge that you're walking down the right side of the building and down the sidewalk, and then that little bridge there. Now that overextends the property line. Does the easement allow for that?
Yeah. Yes. Well, we're going to more than likely right there on that corner. I'm going to bring up the photographs. The photograph. It's photograph number. If I can stretch this for photograph number 8. There are concrete steps here now, and I'm proposing that we're going to rebuild this whole corner in concrete steps, and then we'll do it in wood to go across, essentially on our property. So on the easement will still be concrete as it is now. It's just gonna be a little higher.
You have to get a pull for that to work on that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Duncan, you just broke up a little.
do you have to get approval to do that work on their property, the easement?
We
Your
would,
property, that's their property.
we have an easement. Mr. Heffley will have to, read that and find out, but we have right to change the elevation of that, yes.
So that easement, what we're proposing is on the easement itself. And we don't need a construction easement to be on their property to build this. We can build this all within the easement area, and we don't have to go outside of the easement area. So we don't need any additional relief or approvals from our neighbor on that. We already have that by virtue of the existing easement that we're going to build on.
Is that true? Bill Haggerty, is that true?
I'd have to read the easement.
Yeah.
Not the title.
A condition of this, and a condition whether or not it was in this resolution or not, is you have no rights to go onto your neighbor's property, whether you have an application for the land use board or not. So, unless the neighbor consents to your being there, you can't use the neighbor's property for construction or access.
And we don't intend to. We're only going to use the area that we have an easement for.
Okay.
And anything else in the board?
No, I think we should move it to the public, Alan. Let's go.
Okay, I'll open this to the public. Would anybody from the public like to comment on this application?
And if all the engineers and planners and everybody could remove your screens right there, thank you.
Anybody wants to comment, please go to the bottom of your screen and reactions, raise your hand. Anybody at all from the public want to comment or question this application? I don't see any.
Well,
Nope.
Mark, hold on. Got one right here.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Frado?
Yeah, Mark Fredo.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Frado, you can be sworn in, please, by Mr. Haggerty.
Mr. Fredo, please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name for the record again.
Mark Fredo.
And are you a resident in Hopatcong?
Yes, at number 1 Point Pleasant.
And how close is that to this property?
It's the adjacent property that's on the property line of the garage.
Okay.
We actually came down to try and do the combined garage in the beginning. So my concern when I saw the plans, well, the first thing when I saw the letter was the 22 feet. So you already addressed that. So that was my first concern. The other concern was I've been here 27 years. It's always been used as a shed, and there's never been used for a car. As you can see from the photographs that Mr. Fox showed, it's tight there, the parking. And if they do plan to swing a car into that garage, they have to, if you look at the survey, you'll see they have to come across my property to get into the garage. And it's already tight, and we park cars all around there. So I don't know what that's going to become a problem.
Well, we've already finished with the garage, and there are no variances being requested. Basically, they're allowed to do just about anything they want as long as they stay within the limits.
Well, that's all I'm saying is they can't. They have to drive on my property to get into the garage.
Well, that's another issue.
Right. That's the same issue that we talked about in terms of the access easement. You know, they've got to stay on their property. They've got to figure out how to stay on their property.
Yep.
I mean, I love the idea that was brought up to redo the whole, I mean, first of all, that garage needs to be redone, and all of the concrete around the garage is destroyed from the weather. That idea of putting the garage into the property and redesigning the easement drive-through, it's all got to be redone anyway. I think that's an awesome idea. Whoever brought that up, I don't remember who brought that up.
So let me just speak to that. It's Bernd Heffley here. So Mr. Fredo, you know what, in concept, that might work, but as a practical matter, as the attorney that would have to get that done, it's literally impossible because of the way that easement is and the people that are the beneficiaries of that easement that would have to agree and consent to that. That is something that's just not really ever going to happen. And so while it's an interesting thought, it's easier for us to just bring our height down, comply with the ordinance, and have a conforming structure there in terms of the height. We cannot move it. It's a non-starter for us because I could not in good conscience tell the Jarasinskis that I could ever get that accomplished by virtue of redoing that easement with the 6 people that benefit from it.
Right, I understand.
Okay. All right, Mr. Irwin, you're next.
Mr. Irwin, you're up.
Okay.
Mr. Irwin, you want to raise your hand and be sworn in by our attorney, please?
Mr. Irwin, do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And Mr. Irwin, state your name for the record.
It's Howard Irwin, IRWIN.
And are you a resident in the area of the subject property?
Yes, I live at 1C Point Pleasant Road, which is the neighbor to the right. If you're looking at the lake, to the applicant's property. So I had a few questions and that I wanted to have addressed. Pretty simple ones. One, I want to make sure that any drainage coming off of the new porch is properly collected by leader drains and drains down onto their property. There was a lot of discussion when I made my application for our construction of our garage and how we handle drainage. And we specifically made sure that we didn't put any drainage on their property, and therefore I want the same treatment from them for their addition. I don't have a problem with the extension of the enclosed porch. I think it'll look great. I don't have a problem with what they're proposing. I do want to just clarify for the record their comment that all construction access will be through the sidewalk easement that they currently have, and that they intend to stage materials and everything on their own property. So I know that was brought up, and I just want to make sure that's 100% clear for the record. And then the other thing I wanted to note, they're not here typically during the winter, but we live on the cul-de-sac that we live on. The town only plows in one direction. They always go counterclockwise, and they tend to push all the snow up against the curb line and that sidewalk easement. So for some reason, snowplows don't ever go the other way. So that's something that they should be aware of. They're going to be living here full time and in the winter. I do have a comment about the garage and the comments about the garage. Your attorney, Mr. Heffel, said he doesn't think that he could get the other 3 neighbors, all the 1A, 1B, 1C, to agree to have the garage moved. I personally think the garage at the end has always been an eyesore. Getting it improved and reconstruction will help. Obviously not at 1.5 or 1 3/4 its current size, but I don't think that moving it onto their property and realigning the easement, that would pretty much what I would call a no-brainer with the other neighbors at 1A, 1B, and I can only speak for myself. But and I don't know if any of them are on this hearing, but having that garage moved would be a major improvement to how it feels when you come down at Point Pleasant. I recognize it's a big expense, and I can understand why they wouldn't want to do it. I would also like to ask, from an aesthetic point of view, that the architect for the applicant, in addition to complying with the 18-foot height, looks at the architecture and just doesn't squash the thing down to 18 feet and consider whether you can put a hip roof on it instead of the gable, because the gable makes it look very one of the board members made a comment, looks like a train station depot, and if you did a hip roof, you could soften that gable and make it look a little better. But I would like to make that recommendation. Thank you for letting me be heard.
Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Would anybody else from the public like to comment or question this application at all? Anybody at all? Do you see any, Ron? You're muted, Ron. Nope.
No,
Okay.
sir, I don't. I've gone through both screens. I don't see anybody.
Okay, so I'll bring it back to the board then. What is the pleasure of the board? Would somebody like to make a motion? Anybody at all?
I'd make a motion, based on the recommendations that we've heard. I would make a motion to accept the application with the lowering of the garage to the 18 feet, which doesn't make it a variance in the first place. And that the construction is done on and material stage and all that is protected on the individual's lot. And that the runoff to help to control the water off the new porch is controlled in a fashion that meets or exceeds what we want to do on our engineering controls on water drainage that maintains on that on that person's property.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we did talk too about reducing the deck roof overhang so that it would be reduced to 4 inches, and then you'd have a 5-inch gutter. Is that something you'd like to do that offsets it a little bit off the property line?
Well, I think what Mr. Francis had proposed, that we stay within our property lines and not exceed that. We would agree
Well,
to
you're gonna
that.
have to, you have to do that. Yeah, you're gonna agree to it because you have to. You can't.
Well,
go
yeah.
I think it should be brought in. I think it should be brought narrower. It's, again, building it right where it is. I don't think it's a good thing.
Let me I have to ask Ken Fox this question. So Ken, what was the dimensioning? So there's a 1 foot overhang right now, and you need 6 inches to put the gutters on there, so we could reduce the overall size by 1 foot. Is that a correct calculation?
I would have no, part of it's a stag. I would have no problem doing a 4-inch overhang with a 5-inch gutter. Or 3-inch overhang with a 5-inch gutter, make it 8 inches. And as per our plan, that would, the end of the gutter would then be 8 inches off the property line.
So aesthetically, from the lake, it would look like that porch structure were smaller than the house.
Yes, I'm going to change the trim a little bit on the face of it to make it look like it has a bigger overhang, but it'll be a small overhang.
Okay. Does that satisfy the board there?
I would certainly put it in my recommendation. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's find out by having Danielle call the roll.
Mr. Duncan,
No.
Mr. Gaffney,
Mark?
Playing in space.
he said yes, he had thumbs up.
Okay.
Okay.
Mrs.
Yes,
Crock,
okay.
Mrs. Crock?
Yes,
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Toppin,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler,
No.
Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. Okay, that has passed.
Okay.
Mr. Jarasinski, Mr. Jarasinski, you have our approval.
Thank
Good.
you. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Now, we have one more new application, Brian Besthorn, block 31101, lot 14, 317 Maxim Drive. The applicant would like to build a dock and shed for storage, and there are some variances. Mr. Besthorn.
This is a D variance on this because it's a
Okay, then.
accessory structure on a lot without a principal
Then you
structure.
have to recuse yourselves.
I'm recused. I recuse myself, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, I recuse myself also, Rich Schindler.
Okay, thank you very much.
And just for the board, just so the board knows, I'm representing Mr. Besthorn. He had brought me in a couple of days ago and asked me to appear with him. Chris Colabella on behalf of Mr. Besthorn.
Okay, who is going to be testifying on Mr. Besthorn's behalf?
We have from the Faro engineering firm, Jess Simmons. She's an engineer with the firm. So if we could have Miss Simmons sworn in along with Mr. Besthorn, that would help.
Okay.
You both there?
I am here.
Okay. Please raise your right hands. Do you swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Okay, and you are, state your name.
I'm Brian Besthorn, Besthorne.
Are you the property owner?
I am not the property owner. I have a contract to purchase the property.
He's a contract purchaser, Bill.
Okay, and how about Jess Simmons?
I'm Jess Simons. I'm
Simons, I'm sorry.
professional engineer. I work for Ferrero Engineering.
And you're currently licensed in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
And you participated in the preparation of these plans?
Yes, I have.
And you've testified before land use boards in the past?
Yes, I have. I worked for Ferrero for 3 years. Prior to that, I owned my own firm for 30 years. And I testified before boards in multiple counties.
Does anybody from the board have a problem with accepting him as an expert witness? Seeing none, we will accept him.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Colabella.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Simons, with respect to the plan that was prepared, I would just ask you to, I'm just making reference now, it looks like a variance plan that was prepared, dated, looks like March 19, 2021, and it may have been amended on, it looks like April 26, 2021.
That's correct.
And that plan, could you just describe for the board, obviously it's a variance plan, the plan itself and the variances that Mr. Besthorn will need to get the approvals that he's seeking?
Yes, we basically have an existing lot in an R1 residential zone. Required lot area is 15,000 square foot. The existing lot is 4,970 square feet. The required frontage is 120 feet, and our lot is 30.44 feet. We're proposing.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but is it possible to get the site plan on the screen just for the public and just so the board has something to review as describing it? It's just very helpful.
That would be helpful. Ms. Rennie, could you assist us with that?
Yep, hold on.
Thank you.
Thank you. As you can see, we're on Maxman Drive and also have frontage on the lake. What we're proposing is a 9-foot by 12-foot shed, basically situated on the flat portion of the lot, and a 4-foot by 50-foot dock located basically within an easement, the lake access easement.
When you say lake access easement, my understanding is that you're a contract purchaser of the property. Is that right?
That is accurate.
Mr. Colabello, what's the status of the property then?
At this point, Mr. Besthorn is under contract to purchase it, and it's subject to him gaining the approvals that were before the board tonight on.
And the property is subject to access easements? Is that what we have?
There are access easements, Mr. Besthorn, and I could ask him the question. He had a search conducted, and there are several property owners surrounding the property that have access to the lake through this property. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
If you would just continue, Mr. Simons.
We're proposing basically a small gravel walk as a access to the shed and to the dock where the applicant will keep his boat, and in the shed he'll keep other small items, kayaks, life preservers, etc.
Okay. With respect to the technical review that was conducted by the town engineer, Mr. Rushke, did you have an opportunity to review his letter of May 14, 2021, and the 4 issues contained under the technical review at the end of the letter?
Yes, I did.
And could you address each of those, starting with number 1, the permit by rule, as he explains it?
Yes, we are allowed under permit by rule, I believe number 17. We're allowed to, there's basically 2 of them. There's a permit by rule for number 10 and a permit by rule number 13. One is the construction of non-habitable building. The building is not located in a floodway. The footprint of the building is less than 200 square feet. There's no disturbance within 25 feet of the top of the bank, and there are no trees to be removed. Permit by rule number 17 is the construction of a dock, pier, or boathouse. And this is on impounded fluvial regulated waters, which would be a lake or a pond of greater than 1 acre. And we're allowed to construct a dock, pier, or boathouse as long as it is no larger than 2,000 square feet. And the other permit by rule would be the general construction of activities located outside of flood hazard area. And we're not putting any fuel tanks, solar panels, or anything like that in. And we're no disturbance within 25 feet of the top of the bank for the structure we're proposing. There is a small dry laid stone wall along the lakefront now, and the dock will go alongside of that. It's a 4-foot by 50-foot dock.
Now, did you have an opportunity to look at any historical data to determine whether or not there was ever a dock there?
Previously, there was a small, under the old survey, there was a small wooden dock basically located in the same location that we have. This one just did not extend out as far into the lake.
Okay. And if we look at the plan that's on the screen, could you just describe, first of all, on the lakeside, where that dock would be, where would that dock be placed?
The dock would be placed 28 feet off the dock that is on the west side of the property, and 20.3 feet off the dock that is on the east side of the property.
Okay, very good. And with regard to the non-habitable building, could you describe what the building will be, what the building is that's proposed at this point that would fall under the permit by rule 13?
Yes, there will be no trees removed. It's further than 25 feet off the top of bank, and it's less than the 200 square feet. It's basically a prefab shed that would be placed on the lot with a small amount of grading.
Very good. You know, number 2.
In the shed,
I'm sorry?
would there be electricity and or plumbing?
You'd have to ask the applicant.
Yeah, it's my understanding that there would be a desire to have electricity, but not plumbing. Electricity just for lighting.
That is accurate, yes.
Now, Mr. Simons, with regard to the parking spaces under number 2, minimum of 2 parking spaces should be provided. At this point, what is the position, the applicant's position, and how does this impact the application?
The applicant proposes basically to walk to the site. I think he's within 400 or 500 feet of the site, so he'd walk there. Presently, there actually is a small gravel area in the front that you could park a single car. The adjacent property owner's driveway actually encroaches somewhat on the site, so there's gravel parking there also.
Okay, and so there's no a proposal to have parking spaces, is that right?
No, that's not the intent.
Okay, and would parking spaces add to impervious coverage on the lot?
Yes, it would.
Okay, And is it the intent to just disturb the lot as little as possible?
That we're proposing minimal disturbance, yes.
Okay. And with regard to number 3, there's this issue of stormwater that was brought up with regard to the county right of way, of course, coming off the county right of way. How would you propose that that be dealt with?
Basically, the water comes off the county right away now, and we would allow it to flow through the lot. The building would be slightly raised to divert the water around the building, but it would flow as it would today.
Okay, so it wouldn't change the flow as far as this particular plan.
That's correct.
Okay. And then lastly, are you aware of whether or not a application was made to the county with regard to soil conservation?
Yes, we do have, I do believe we have soil conservation approval on this.
Okay. And Mr. Besthorn, if I could just ask you a couple of questions.
Of course.
And then I'll defer to the board in terms of questioning both of them. Is it your intention to modify your deed if you purchase this to make this parcel part in terms of covenants within the deed, part and parcel of your existing property, which is on Sutton Trail?
Yes, it is. That is my intent.
So you would connect the two in the event that one was sold, the other would have to be sold. You understand that?
I do understand that, and I'm fine with that. I'm not doing this to develop and sell this other property. It's my intent to use it for myself and my family.
Okay. And your property line, how far from this, from the roadside of this lot, how far is your property line from the roadside of the lot?
So I don't have an exact measurement, but there is the far back of my lot probably is about 50 foot or 75 foot from Maxim Drive.
Okay. And how far up the road from Maxim Drive? Do you know that measurement by chance or no?
I don't have that measurement.
Okay, so but your lot line is 50 feet from Maxim Drive, and your lot is pretty close to this particular lot on the lake. Is that accurate?
It is, yeah. There happens to be a right of way that leads from Maxim Drive to Sutton Trail. Half of it's paved, known as Toth Lane, and the other half is wooded, but the walk through is pretty clear. I have no problem traversing it. There really aren't any trees or rocks in the way. So it takes me about, I would say about 2 minutes to walk from my home to this lot.
Okay. And what's your intention in terms of the use of the dock first and then the shed?
Okay, so I intend to moor my boat at the dock, and also swim off of it, things like that. And the shed, I intend to store boating supplies. So my kids have kayaks. You know, we have like was mentioned before, life preservers, things like that inside of the shed.
Okay, and based on research that you have done, this particular property, has it been used in the past 5 years?
No, definitely not in the past 5 years. I've lived here in Hopatcong since 2007, and I've never seen the property used before.
Okay, and do you have any independent information that would give you an idea of how long it has been in this state where it hasn't been used?
Yes, the current owner who I'm purchasing the lot off of, he has owned the property since 2000, I believe 2005. He told me that, you know.
Well, yeah, that would be hearsay, so we'll be a little careful.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
All right. And with regard to actually accessing the property, do you have any objection to the other parties who may have an interest in this property in terms of access to the lake? Do you have any objection to them using it to access the lake?
I have no objection to giving anybody their deeded rights to access the lake.
Okay. That's all I have of Mr. Besthorn now. I would open it up to questions from the board.
Okay, anybody from the board?
What if they use your dock? That could have, you know.
So I really want to keep this shed private, and for mooring boats, I really can't allow other people to moor boats there. I am willing to, if there's no other way for them to access the lake, I am willing to let them, use the dock to access the water.
When you cleared the lot, Mr. Besthorn, you did quite a bit of work. Did that impact the water coming off the right of way at all?
So I actually didn't clear any vegetation off the lot except for piles of leaves, and I found some used tires. I found, about 10 years worth of Christmas trees and other garbage that was dumped there. So I left whatever small, weeds were there or whatever was going to grow. And if you go by now, you can see everything sprouting up already in the spring. But whatever I did wouldn't have impacted the flow of the water through there. No.
Do you intend to remove any trees?
No, I do not intend to remove any trees at all.
Okay.
I want to keep this as natural as possible.
Okay. So the only disturbance to the lot would be I guess you'd have to put some kind of base down for the shed.
Yes, I would probably put like a concrete pad for the shed, just because I need something that, can withstand the wash coming off of the road and not get damaged. It's something like a pressure treated lumber might work, but I'm worried about longevity with that. So maybe a 6-inch high or whatever the minimum depth is for a concrete pad.
Okay. Any other questions from the board of either Mr. Besthorn or Mr. Simons?
Anybody at all from the board?
Just again, with the parking, your testimony is that you're going to walk on Maxim Drive, which, does not have sidewalks. So presumably you and your guests are going to be walking on the county road. But what happens if you sell the property, after you get approval? How is someone, going to park, or how are they going to access it? It seems like fundamentally you got to have parking so that visitors or yourself can access the property.
Perhaps I could add, Mr. Besthorn,
Sure.
Is Toth Lane directly across from this property?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so anybody if you were accessing the property, it would just be you walking across Maxim Drive, not walking down Maxim Drive.
That's correct, yes.
And the other property owners that have rights, they would also be able to access it from Toth Lane. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, yes.
And they would simply have to cross Maxim Drive. They wouldn't be walking down Maxim Drive.
That's also correct, yes. They would be
Okay.
crossing Maxim Drive.
Okay.
Well, again, my comment still stands. I think the board should require parking stalls, because it's the property standing, unless you're going to deed restrict this piece of property to your primary residence. This is a long property.
That's what he intends to do, Mr. Rushkin.
Okay, so then you cannot sell this property without,
That's correct.
selling anything. Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah,
And
he had
then the
mentioned
other-
that. He had testified to that earlier.
Okay, and then the other item is the stormwater. I think is just, your own due diligence to try to manage that versus assume that it's just going to inundate your shed and you're building your shed to withstand the water. It seems like you should design this. You have your engineer design it so it goes around it and it doesn't impact it. It doesn't erode the property, and just control it versus let it destroy the property.
Yeah, I believe Mr. Simons addressed that, and perhaps Mr. Simons, you could address that again at this point to clarify.
Yeah, we can regrade it so it goes around the shed. If you require it, we could put some riprap or something adjacent to the shed, make sure there is no erosion. We want to keep the disturbance to a minimum.
Yeah, but you still a disturbance to a minimum. But if the erosion is disturbing the property, then you're not accomplishing what your goal is. I think as an engineer, calculate what a practical flow going onto the property, and then just manage it. And so it does not continuously erode the property. You don't want to damage your property. You want to manage it. You just don't want to let it go, and you don't want to push it onto a neighbor's property. If it flows continuously through this property onto it, you do not want to push that property onto a neighboring, that water onto a neighboring property. So it just should be managed.
I don't think we have any problem doing that, as long as we don't have to get into any deep permitting from the DEP.
Are there any other questions?
All right, seeing none, I will open it up to the public. Would anybody from the public like to comment or question this application at all? If so, please go to the bottom of your screen. On the reactions, raise your hand. Mr. Askin.
Yes, good evening, Chairman. William
Please raise your
Askin,
hand and be
appearing on
sworn in by
behalf.
our attorney.
Pardon me?
Oh, are you an attorney, sir?
I am, Mr. Chairman, yeah.
Oh, okay, then you don't have to be sworn in.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Askin.
So I'm appearing on behalf of my client, who is also on the Zoom conference, Lois Doring and her two children, David Doring and Lisa Bierman are on the call.
Okay, just a second, please. Mr. Haggerty, is this
Yes, sir.
okay?
Sure. Sure. We can swear in his witnesses and Mr. Askin can introduce what he's proposing, what his proffer is right now.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Askin.
So, Mr. Haggerty, do you want to swear in my witnesses first and then I'll
Sure,
continue?
sure. The witnesses that are going to testify, please raise your right hand.
And
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Lisa Behrman is muted here.
Sorry, I do.
Okay. And who else do we have? We have Lisa Behrman, I see on the screen, and
David
you have
Doring,
David Doring is with us.
you need to unmute David.
Yes.
And then Lois Doring, Lois, can you touch your computer screen and unmute? I think you need to unmute still, Mrs. Doring. Touch your computer screen.
I don't see her. Oh, there she is. Okay.
Yep, she's on there.
Okay. Let's see if I can try to trip it.
Invite her to unmute, maybe.
Ms. Doring, you are still muted.
There you go. I think, nope.
Nope, she's still muted.
Yep.
There you go. Oh, you were unmuted for a second, now you muted again.
Just touch it once, Mom.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
All right, thanks, everyone. Mrs. Doring, Lois, is the owner of the property at 5 Toth Lane in the borough, which is, as the applicant testified, pretty much across the street from the subject property. Mrs. Doring and her family have owned 5 Toth Lane for over 50 years. They bought the property in 1964. She and her family have used the property and the property rights that go with it, including the deed of easement, which they enjoy over the subject lane that we're talking about here this evening. I did send a copy of the actual easement language ahead of the hearing tonight to Mr. Haggerty. And just to highlight for the board and Mr. Haggerty again, real quickly, the language includes the right to use the private lane leading from Maxim Drive to the shore of Byram Cove. That's it. It's a very general deed of easement. It doesn't use the word access, although that is certainly implicit in the right to use the property. But the right to use the property is not then limited to access. It's the right to use the entire lane. And I don't know if Mr. Haggerty would agree with me or not, but certainly that is my objector's opinion. They've used that lane for generations now, and not just for access to the property, but for many other recreational and uses and purposes over the years. So
In
before,
what way, could you be more explicit and tell us in what ways they've used this?
yeah, sure. I don't know, Lisa, do you want to handle that? I mean, you were a young child when you used
Sure.
that lane. Yeah.
Sure. obviously we have not used it in several years at all, but when my brother and I were younger, my parents had a boat that they did dock there. It was a small wooden craft motorboat. They also had a sailboat that was there. And so we did use, and we swam off the dock that was there. There's remnants of it up there, I believe now, but that is how we use that property. That is the access that we use there.
Thank you.
And you're Lois's daughter, I take it.
I'm Lois's daughter. Thank you.
What's that?
Yes.
And when was the last time that you guys used it?
Like I said, we have not used it in many years. I was a child when we were using the property. My father has been on the property, but as a family, we have not. I have not been on it myself.
You're asking in your search, is there any other property owner that has access rights to this parcel?
Yeah.
Or
I don't
Yes.
have any deeds of other properties that have rights, Mr. Haggerty, but I am aware, and I am quite confident that there are at least a half a dozen property owners that have easements of some sort to this property.
Okay. Yeah, I have a deed that was provided. It's from 1959. And it was to someone named Kramer, Charles Kramer and Beatrice Kramer from Elma Barami, I guess it is, iStock and Barnabas iStock. And the language, as Mr. Askin says, it says together with the right to use said Sutton Trail and said private lane to Maxim Drive and the private lane leading from Maxim Drive to the shore of Byram Cove, Lake Hopatcong, along the easterly line of Fred Miller's lot, in common with the said first parties, their heirs and assigns forever. So the grantor in this deed reserved the right to continue to use it as well. So it appears that there's probably multiple property owners who have a right of use.
Well, I think though,
we go back and we look at these old easements, we say, gee, we wish they were a little more explicit, but we can't go back and change a document. I can tell you where we do have, I had an issue with an access driveway easement, and it said it's located along a 50-foot strip. And there is there is case law that says, well, you don't control the whole 50-foot strip then. You are able to put a driveway on that. That doesn't mean that the property owner subject to the easement can't use the balance of it. You don't control 50 feet. You control a reasonable access lane, which is be about 15 feet or so. In this case, it says you have a right to use. It's not exclusive. There's an issue, I suppose, with whether the purchaser can put a shed there or not, but that's really not something that this board, we're not a court, and we can't really adjudicate an access easement. It's a difficult position for the board to be placed in. The applicant proceeds subject to the easement rights. The applicant has offered to allow the property owners who have deeded access rights to use that dock as long as they don't interfere. I'm not sure what Mr. Askin's position is in regard to this. It would probably be very helpful if the parties haven't spoken yet to have that opportunity to do so and try to, I would encourage that.
May I speak?
Thanks for
I would
that.
agree with Mr. Haggerty. I think we're in the wrong forum. This is something that would need to be either mediated to resolution to define the scope of the access. And if not, it's something that would have to be adjudicated, as Mr. Haggerty says, in a court of equity to figure out what the scope of the rights are, not here before land use board. So I think the board can.
For the parties to confer? Could it, Mr. Colabello, could it be productive, hopefully, for the parties to confer, see if there's something that could be worked out? I'd hate to see this go down an ugly path that might be avoided.
Let Ms. Variance speak for a moment. She wanted to say something.
Go ahead, sorry.
Behrman?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. I'm trying to bring my screen up. I wanted to say that we have been in conversation with Mr. Besthorn, and he has been very polite and helpful in the conversation, and we appreciate that. And there are several issues though with the whole access. We do have access to or use to the water, but there's encroachment from the neighbor. And then when
Which
Mr.
neighbor is
Besthorn,
that?
that would be the neighbor to the right of the property. So they are encroaching on the property. And so that's already limiting the access. And then when they add the dock and you pull the boat in, and if the neighbor who is encroaching pulls their boat in, there's not very much space left any longer to access the water. And our position is that we would like to maintain the value of the property for my mother. And that value of the property is in the access and the use of the lane. And so, I understand that Mr. Besthorn is willing, and he has said this, willing to let us use the dock if there is not access to the water and otherwise. And we have a deeded right. It's not based on his willingness to let us use the land. He has cleared things other than Christmas trees. That's in an email that he emailed to me. I don't know if he cut down the trees, but certainly trees have been removed from the property. And the owners, I'm sorry, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. And there are several deeded access owners. Nancy Kelly would be one, but that property was recently.
You can't tell us anything about them.
Okay, but I looked up their deeds.
Yeah, she doesn't live there
It doesn't
anymore.
matter. It's still hearsay.
Okay.
I have a question. You said something about the person on the right side already encroaching. Well, that has nothing to do with you. That has to do with the owner of the property.
Right, I understand that, but it does speak to our access to use the property. If we're pulling down the amount of shoreline that's accessible for people, then it's further made smaller and smaller for those people.
I have to agree more with Mr. Colabella and Mr. Haggerty that this is not the forum for that.
It may not be the forum for that, but I truly don't believe that the board would want to interfere with private property rights and to grant or approve variances for development on a lot that would clearly impede and restrict my client's use of the property, their legal entitled use of the property pursuant to the deed of easement.
Mr. Besthorn?
Oh, so I just want to add, I have been, as Mrs. Behrman has said, we have been in discussion to try to resolve this, and I agree that I don't think this is the forum for that. I would say that I'm not being, I have no ill will or intent to block anybody, including you and your whoever else wants to access the water. And I do believe that compared to the stacked stone bulkhead that's there now, that you probably wouldn't be able to safely traverse to get to the water, that a dock would be a much safer way to access the water, especially if I was to put the swim ladder at the end so people can climb out of the water. The only issue that we had was, she really wants to be able to moor a boat there. I don't think there's any riparian rights in the deed even intended, but there's not room for other people to moor boats there. So I have no issue with them using the lot and accessing the lake at all. It's just.
Can they put a dock there?
Hey, Bill, is there ways and means on the dimensions of the access to the lake? Is there anything there that gives us, the data points of what real access to the lake is? We deal with this a lot all around the lake.
Yeah,
Um,
it just says access, and it's what
just says
constitutes access.
Says use, says use, use.
Yeah, it says use. You can use it. Yes.
I do have a title from
Right.
1947 that was returned to me by the title search. And I, for the title search, believe that that was the predecessor to that title. And that does give a little bit more clear language on what use is. And it says, the tax map of the Borough of Hopatcong known as Toth Lane, together with any dock jutting out from said church landing in Toth Lane. The parties of the first part reserves the right to assign non-exclusive use of the said two lots to others for the purpose of ingress and egress to and from the waters of Lake Hopatcong for swimming and bathing, subject to requirements of membership in existing membership associations or associations to be formed for the maintenance, upkeep, and perpetuation of such lands for use of property owners of certain lands. Sorry to ramble down a little bit. But,
perhaps the answer is that an association is formed. I mean, that might be the answer. And maybe I could have a discussion with Mr. Askin and we can work it all out. But I don't know that that prevents the board from acting on the application. We have somebody who's interested in purchasing it, improving it. Right now, he's turned this lot into something that's actually usable, where before it was probably a hazard and you couldn't use it. In fact, he's going to bring it to a point where any property owner who has a right would probably even consider using it. Nobody's used this thing, and I'm not testifying, but I happen to live right in the area for the entire time I've been here, which is over 20 years. And I would suggest to the board that you can act on this application, and we could work out the details of what the access is, the scope of the access with the property owners that have deeded rights. I'm confident that with Mr. Besthorn's reasonableness, and I've discussed this with him, that of course he wants to be a good neighbor and he wants to assist the neighbors in accessing the lake. And of course he's purchasing it. So he's vested in this. He's going to be spending a lot of money to not only purchase it, pay the taxes, but to improve it, all for the benefit of these other property owners. And I think the board can act on the application, and I would ask the board to do that.
Mr. Colabello, say the board acts on the applications, say the board approves it. Mr. Askin's clients decide, well, we're not happy with the board's approval allowing construction of a shed and a dock. We feel that could interfere with our right of use of the property. Your client's a contract purchaser. The appeal is filed. You're held up for 6 months or so while this thing is straightened out and scheduled in court, probably a minimum of 6 months. And where's that leave you?
Well, I look at it in reverse. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as if the approval, if Mr. Besthorn gets the approval, it's going to give him the incentive to resolve this, because he's not going to want to be confronted with appeals, and he's not going to want to be confronted with litigation. He's going to want to resolve it with his neighbors. So I don't, where does it leave us? I mean, if there's no agreement, it leaves us in litigation.
With your purchase.
Excuse me?
May I say something?
Sure.
Go ahead.
We have asked Mr. Besthorn if he would consider an association. We've asked him if he would consider partnering with us. We've asked or other ideas that he has. At this point, he has not been willing to discuss any of those options.
Mm-hmm.
And those are in email.
But with that said, I do hear Mr. Besthorn's, proposals tonight that he is cooperative. I haven't heard anything about a gate at the top of the easement on Maxim Drive. That was another objection that we had. I don't know if that was on the plan, but it doesn't sound like the gate is an issue anymore, right? Is that true? You're not going to put a locked gate?
I would have to put a locked gate there. I can give you a little background on why. I actually was part of another easement with dock rights on Maxim Drive, where a gentleman has just purchased that lot and also is building a new home there. And we had problems with strangers coming from out of town and just using that property I asked them what they're doing there, and they said, well, my friend lives across the street and he said that I could come and use this lot. So the intention is not to keep my neighbors out. And I said this to everybody, I'm going to give whoever has rights a key, because we can't have strangers there. It's a liability. You're talking about water access, and I have to insure this property. So I have to make sure that I'm protecting, that part of it. But that's the only reason that it's there. No problem giving anybody who has rights a key.
And I suppose that's a reason why you wouldn't want to put a parking space in there, because anybody could park there.
So we have this issue. I deal with this issue almost on a daily basis in the summertime. We have these fire lanes all the way around the lake. We have these deeded accesses all the way around, and we have everybody that doesn't live in Hopatcong come in and park and try to use these points of access to the lake on all the time. This is a very common issue throughout the lake, and I can understand his concern that, hey, look, I appreciate what he's saying, that anybody that has deeded access to the property, go for it. Yeah, God love you. That's your deeded right. But we have a lot of visitors in our borough. They come in and pick out these places and make it party zones.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to avoid. And also out of respect for the neighbors. I know Mr. Ginter is also here, and he's probably going to speak, but I'm sure he wouldn't appreciate strangers or having the risk of people going down there.
Right.
Right. I mean, the alternative is Mr. Besthorn walks away and nobody gets the benefit of him improving that property, and it sits there and rots for another 50 years. So it's certainly an improvement, and it's certainly helpful to the other property owners. But if there's going to be objections, and I mean, right now he's not committed to purchase it. It's conditioned upon him getting the approvals, and so if the other property owners want to step up and do it, well, I guess they could do that. They could buy the lot. They could do what he's doing and pay all the taxes if they want to do that. That's really the alternative to this. So I think what Mr. Besthorn is proposing is really the best way to approach improving this lot and assisting the property owners who have rights, who have deeded rights to the property. But to discourage it, it doesn't make any sense. We're trying to obviously improve the area and improve any lakefront property. And that's exactly what he's trying to do, and trying to improve the ability to actually access the lake for these property owners.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I tend to, I'm listening to our attorney, and I'm going to refer to him. He's got the right idea. This is something that we can't hear. All these principals got to get together, figure out what you want to do, how you want to do it, and then come back to us. And let's see if we can, move forward with this. But as far as what, I'd have to go with our attorney's recommendation on this.
All right. And our attorney's recommendation is that Mr. Besthorn and the people who have the deeded rights to use the property get together and come up with some kind of plan.
Yes.
I think there should be a sincere effort to do that, frankly. I hate to see the opportunity potentially squandered. I don't know how long Mr. Askin's been involved in this, perhaps not that long, but that would be the best solution, because if this is, there's always a potential appeal, which would be not productive, never is.
Bill, but he's already testified that he would allow any deeded access to that property that they have the rights to. So what else does he have to do? He said, hey, if he has a deed to do it, have at it.
Yeah. And he has to recognize, he has to honor the right of use as set forth in those deeds. I do understand Mr. Askin's client's position. If you look on the plan, the Fiero plan, the dock to the right, there is a substantial encroachment into this property, and it's angled because of the shoreline, so that crosses substantially in front of this property. So it would be, the applicant has proposed to put the wood dock appropriately to the extreme left side. May be difficult to put a second dock in there. You know, you've only got a 20-foot separation from the interior line of the applicant's proposed dock to the corner of the encroaching dock. You know, so it'd be pretty tough to put a second dock in there and have a boat moored on that second dock. So I can understand the easement holder's position.
Yeah.
Right, Mr. Haggerty, I don't believe that the board, the land use board, has the right to hold up an application based on the desire of the board or the board's attorney to fashion some kind of resolution prior to getting the approval. What, you know,
No,
what's-
we can't force some resolution. We can't
Right.
force you to talk to the other people. We can't do that. But what we can do is we've got 120 days to decide this. It's a use.
You do, and you could certainly make a condition of any approval that Mr. Besthorn comply with his obligations to these other parties who have deeded rights. The board can't do more than that.
Let's do this. Let's hold Mr. Askin, Ms. Bierman, and the other people who were Mr. Doring and Ms. Doring. We'll come back to them in a moment, but let's see if there's anybody else from the public who wanted to comment or question this application. So if there's anyone else from the public who would like to add to this discussion, ask any questions about it, please go to the bottom of your screen and in reactions, raise your hand.
I
Mr.
believe
Ginter's trying to get
Mr.
in.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I think he's trying to speak, but looking for the mute button maybe.
Mr. Ginter? You're muted. Ron, do you want to ask him to unmute himself?
Yeah, I've tried that. Let's try it again.
Mr. Ginter, you're still muted. If you're on a computer, take the mouse and go to the bottom of the screen. Left-hand corner is the mute button. It should have a red slash through it. Click it. There you go.
All right, good, all right.
Okay,
All right,
Mr. Ginter, please
raise your hand.
Got it.
You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Correct, yes, I do.
And set forth your name for the record, please.
Winford R. Ginter.
Okay, and where do you reside?
I reside, I have a home adjacent to the fire lane, 319 Maxim Drive. I do not reside there, I own the property.
And you have a home there?
I have my son living there, along with a squatter.
Oh, okay, we don't need to get into that.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Ginter.
This property has multiple issues. And I think that the first clear-cut opinion I heard tonight was that we have to go over all the different issues before we render a decision. There's a huge rock that obstructs traffic. So anybody that has a boat and has a dock to that extent, and even not to that extent, I've personally hit the rock. My son's hit the rock. It's about 4 or 5, it's underwater, generally anywhere, depending on the height of the water, anywhere from 1 to 2.5 feet. If you come by with an outboard, as many fishermen have done, they've lost their lower units. You know, I think he said something about he wants to keep a patio boat, guaranteed. He's going to be hitting that lower unit, you know, more than once. And the dock goes out too far. So when this property on the east side of the fire lane wants to bring his boat in, he can't get in because he's got a dock there. So he's obstructing traffic with the dock. He's really negating. When you look at the map and see how much property on the lakefront, which he's being taxed for, is going to actually be nullified by putting that dock out. I mean, he has rights too, I would assume. But coming in from that angle, that rock is huge. It's, as I say, 4 or 5 feet on the horizontal and about 5 to 6 feet high. And you're not going to move it. I mean, it's there right off the dock for right about, I would say, 20 feet off the dock that of the proposed dock that he wants to build. Now that's that part. You go on to Maxim Drive. When I go out of my driveway, which is next to the fire lane, I roll down my window because there's a huge rock there, and they usually come around there 35, 45 miles an hour because they're always in a rush. You go out and you don't hear them, you're going to get T-boned. Not only that, I read in the application, they want to put a walkway, you know, from the fire lane to Toth Lane. What person's going to walk across there in safety? Come on. You know, that and up to the right is not bad. So what I usually do is I go out to the right, or I roll down the window and I listen carefully if I hear a car coming down Maxim Drive. And I go out. Now you're going to put this driveway right next to that, which is closer to this rock, all the more of a problem. There is a driveway, but he designs it on the property next to the fire lane so that he goes out westbound. He has another parking space on the east side of the rock where he parks a car, so that when he backs out, he's got to watch it because they come around that rock. It's about, you know, a 50-degree angle, and they're not, you know, slowing down for anybody. So he's got to be very careful too. And it just isn't the right place for park. First of all, what is the fire lane? 30 feet? How are you going to pull in, back around, and then go out frontwards, which I understand is the law on Maxim Drive. Case in point, 2 garages up on the west side of Maxim Drive. Nice, beautiful lot. Man bought it, wants to put up a house. They said, you have to get a parking permit. You can't go in and back out onto Maxim Drive on that particular hill. You have to create a turnaround, so you go out engine first. He said, you know, by the time I'm finished trying to put in a parking area like that, so I think Green Acres now owns the lot. All right, now this deed that I'm looking at, dated June the 7th, 2004, has 56 lots listed on it that have access to the lake. So you tell me, if you want to be fair, everybody wants a boat, everybody wants a shed, go ahead. Get 56 sheds on that property and 56 boats. How are you going to do it?
Well, what are you looking at? What are you looking at there, sir?
What's that?
What are you looking at? Are you 56 what?
This is a deed dated June the 7th, 2004. I don't know. I can't read it.
No, it doesn't mean anything to us.
It does. Well,
what we would have to see that we would have to see a copy of the deed to know what it says.
Yes,
know what
yes.
Where's Bill?
We
Bill?
don't know what the relevance of that deed is.
Oh.
Okay. Where's Bill Donegan?
Me? What?
Okay. Could you get a copy of this deed to them when they need it?
You could bring it into the office, absolutely. And if this hearing proceeds, then Danielle could put it up for the.
Secretary Danielle Rennie.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, if it shows 56 lots, I don't, you can't see it.
No.
Deeded rights.
Whoa.
So where are we going to go with this one?
Okay. Do you have anything else, Mr. Ginter?
No, I think I covered enough.
Okay. Okay, we'll go back to Mr. Askin and Ms. Behrman and Mr. Doring and Ms. Doring, if they have anything further to say.
Yeah, well, you know, a few things. If we are going to go to the merits of the application itself, I have quite a few comments on the variance relief that's being requested or sought by the applicant. If we're not, I can reserve those, and I am quite optimistic, as Mr. Haggerty indicated, and I think Mr. Colabella and the applicant would also agree, that we could resolve these differences. I do believe there has been some progress made, and I think they are slight, and they are certainly, my objectors would prefer to resolve these ahead of a vote. But if it does go to a vote and it is approved, we, would see what we could do, but that may involve, options that we have to take. But if we could resolve these ahead of time, perhaps we could, resolve the issues and the objections would be withdrawn. So I'll leave it up to the board and Mr. Haggerty's advice as to how to proceed, but I think we could resolve these rather quickly. I don't know what the timing is on the proposed closing date for the applicant, but I think this all could be resolved and we could come back in a couple weeks or 4 weeks, whatever the board.
Well, okay, let's see if there's anybody else who wants to comment first. Anybody else from the public want to comment or question this application at all? If so, please go to the bottom of your screen. On the reactions, raise your hand. Ron, do you see anyone? I see no one.
No, I don't see any, Alan.
Okay, then I will bring it back to the board. Before I bring it back to the board, Mr. Calabella and or Mr. Besthorn, do you want to say anything further?
I just wanted to clear up for Mr. Ginter that the proposal doesn't include a driveway. In fact, we were requesting that there be no requirement that there be a driveway. In fact, some conversations took place with the county that we're not going to get into about that. So Mr. Ginter, he's not proposing to put a driveway in there, and he's not proposing that somewhere. No, he's going to walk there. His house is across. His house is.
All right, let's bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board? Does anybody want to make a motion or?
So if this is going to.
Yeah, if the board is
again,
going to
I
make
have
a motion to
comments
act on the application other than postpone it, then Mr. Askin has to have an opportunity to
Right.
address the relief being sought.
Correct.
Mhm.
I don't see anybody from the board wanting to make a motion.
Bill,
Ron?
our options at this point is to accept the applications on the merit that he has testified to that would allow any of the deed variances or easements that is current to be existent. What is our other options as the board than that?
Okay.
Just
Yeah,
purely deny?
Our option is we've got 120 days to act on a use variance application. We can decide it tonight. If we're going to decide it tonight, Mr. Askin has to have a fair opportunity to comment. The board has an option after hearing that comment to accept, reject, or modify the proposal in some fashion.
Danielle, if we were to carry this forward, when would we carry it? I mean, 120 days puts us into.
No, I'm not saying don't carry it 120 days. I'm just saying that's the time we have.
Right. But Danielle, what would be reasonable if we did carry it?
June 15th. I don't know if that would be too soon. I already have 3 applications for that night. July might be a little more open and better.
Okay.
Mr. Haggerty, just for clarity for the board, what are we asking them to do between now and June 15th?
Well, we're
establish an association or what?
No, we're just trying to see if they can resolve something. You know, I always think that's the preferable alternative, and that it should be fully explored. If it's been fully explored and it's exhausted, then the board can hear Mr. Askin tonight and take a vote. But if there's any indication it might be productive, I'd hate to lose that option. Regardless of what the board says, if the board approves it, the position of the parties is going to be the same. The right of use deed stays in effect, and then it's up to an interpretation of what that means, frankly.
Right.
All right, let's see what Mr. Besthorn wants to do. Mr. Bestorn, would you want us to carry this to another date, or would you like us to vote now?
I would defer to my attorney on that. Let him, he has more experience with this than I do. I would just like to add one more thing. It would really be a shame to see this lot go on unutilized just because we can't all get along and come up with some type of agreement. So I do want to work something out. So if this was to go to vote, then I am comfortable saying that, we'll come to some type of agreement. Hopefully, I'll try my best. I mean, we've been communicating back and forth for a couple months now.
So with that said, Mr. Besthorn, with that said, why don't we put it off to the July meeting? Mr. Askin and I will communicate. The only difficulty I see is that we may not have the agreement or even the ability to find and discuss with other property owners who might have rights, the fair resolution of how this property is going to be used. So if we come back to the board and Mr. Askin and I were able to work everything out with the Doring family, which I'm confident we will, then what? What if we have other property owners who they're not here? And so this approval is going to implicate their use as well. Is there going to be an objection from the board at that time to us moving forward?
No, Mr. Calabello, they're either here or not here. And if they're not here, we are going to go ahead one way or the other.
Okay, that's all I want to hear, because that would be a shame if we.
Yeah, there may or may not be a deed out there with 56 lots that have access rights. I haven't seen it, but if there is, then.
Yeah, it's a crapshoot, Mr. Haggerty. It really is. Every property has its own uniqueness to it. I mean, it really does.
Sure.
It does.
Well, Mayor Francis has always said that easements are difficult. And
no, these are the worst. These are absolutely the worst to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me started on Sharps Lane. We have changed ordinance twice on that property because of this issue. This really is a big issue.
Okay, Mr. Calabello, what do you want us to do?
If we can move it to the July meeting, that'll give us 2 months.
July 6th or July 20th, which would be best?
July 20th would be good.
Okay,
And
does that impact your dates with the seller at all?
No, it doesn't. I believe I have until September or October.
Okay, why don't we have a motion to move this to July 20th?
I'll make a motion to move it till July 20th.
I second it.
Second. I already did, Val.
Okay, there you go.
And that would be without further notice.
Without notice.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Calabello, Mr.
Thank you.
Bestor.
Thank you, everyone, for all your
Askin, I'll be in
patience.
touch.
Sounds good, Mr. Colabella.
And Mr. Doring and Ms. Doring. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
We will see these people again in July. Zoning officer, do you have a report for us?
Nothing this evening.
Good. Discussion, anything for discussion? Resolution, Giovanni Chiriboga, hearing date April 20th, 2021. Motion is in order to approve this resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Second.
Mr. Duncan,
Same.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan.
Abstain.
Don't remember if this was a use variance.
It
Council,
it was not.
it was not. Okay, so Councilman Schindler,
Yes.
Mayor Francis,
Yeah.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. Resolution, LH Boathouse, April 6th, 2020. Motion is in order to approve the LH Boathouse resolution for the installation of a flagpole. Do we have such?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Duncan,
Jane,
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler,
Yes.
Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
No. Correspondence, just the correspondence from the Lake Hopatcong Commission on the two properties we discussed tonight. No escrow refunds. Shall we pay the bills?
Pay the bill.
Second.
Mr. Duncan,
yes.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes.
Mrs. Crock,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Tappan,
Yes.
Councilman Schindler,
Yes.
Mayor Francis,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes. I will now open the meeting to the public for questions or comments about any issues at all. If anybody from the public would like to address the board at this time, please go to the bottom of your screen to the reactions button, and on the reactions button, raise your hand. I'll give everybody a moment to do this. Where'd the Ms. Modes? You've already been sworn in tonight. You're muted.
There
Okay,
you go.
I'd like to address the comment made by Mr. Gilbert at the land use board, the last land use board meeting.
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert referenced a post made on the internet that he attributed to me concerning 468 River Styx Road as being a fire lane.
Right.
I stated at that time I didn't. The post he was referring to was not made by me. For the record, my post did not state that the property was at 468 River Styx Road contained a fire lane, nor is my post edited. My question for Mr. Haggerty was, since the residents and the fire department have used 468 River Styx property for years, at what point does the public gain the rights to use the property? Mr. Haggerty referenced adverse possession, but that was not actually what I was asking. So since admittedly the property was used by the residents for many years, even before the current owner took possession, and as admitted by the current owner is still being used by the residents, perhaps Mr. Haggerty could explain why it doesn't fall under easement by prescription.
Easement by prescription is determined by a court of law, certainly not by Mr. Haggerty. There's various factors that have to be analyzed to determine, and it is adverse possession. So if the property owner says, go ahead and use that, or in any way consents to it, it's not adverse. If it's not open and notorious, if it's not obvious, it doesn't qualify. So what I was saying is sometimes people make an assumption of, well, now I own it. Well, try to sell it. You know, a title company is not going to insure it unless a court makes a determination that in fact there is adverse possession, and it's limited to the extent of the use that's made of the property. So, you know, if you're using a 10-foot strip, you don't acquire a 15-foot strip, you acquire a 10-foot strip. That's it.
Thank you, Bill. Anything else, Ms. Rhodes?
No, that's it.
Okay, anybody else from the public want to address the board at this time? Anybody at all for any issue? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the board. Old business. Any old business? Ron, how you doing with the
With
the
what?
ID? The ID.
I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay. Any other old business? Any new business? Ms. Crock?
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned.
That's my girl.
Hey.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Good night,
everybody.
Everyone.
Where are we here?